Hello, good evening. My name is Richard. Welcome back to the channel over and over again, the Arsenal podcast. As you can see from a little caption, it is the Tuesday Clinic. We're back again. We had a week off, obviously, last week because there was no games, international break and all that kind of stuff. But we are back. Lots to talk about. Of course, the game last night is going to be top of the agenda. Of course, I know it is apparently, anyway, I've heard it's a Champions League. It's a Champions League week, and there's some Champions League games. I don't quite know what that competition is, but apparently it's going on. There's a few games, but don't worry about that. Forget about anything like that. This is the only place you need to be for the next couple of hours or so. This is the Tuesday Clinic. So it's a Tuesday Clinic, and I've got, I say, a lot to talk about tonight. The game last night, the game coming up on Friday. Of course, there was a certain ex-Arsenal player that returned last night and did a pretty good job. We have to say, we'll talk about that as well. We will be going back in the archives as always. It's a little bit self-indulgent maybe for me tonight, going back 40 years to when was my first game, the season of my first game, the first season I started coming to Arsenal, 1981. So we'll look back on that, a few bits and pieces from that season, which wasn't the greatest season ever, but it meant a lot to me. And also as well, we will do, of course, our latest prediction league as well. We'll catch up with the latest league table and see how we all got on last weekend, and also predict the coming games. Of course, I'm not going to do it all on my own because it wouldn't be much fun. So we have got our panel, of course. First, as always, it wouldn't be a Tuesday club without Melvin. How you doing, Melvin? You okay?
Yeah, good, thank you. I think I'm good. Just about, yeah, just about. Yeah.
Nice, nice Arsenal top there you've got, or not Arsenal top maybe.
No, I don't want to. This is the Ajax top. Yeah, and it's really nice. It's a really nice one, actually.
No, it is. It's very smart, really. And Ajax might be a good option as a future club to be following, maybe.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it could be the way they do it. I mean, the Tuesday Clinic. I mean, we need it, don't we? The Tuesday Clinic this week. We definitely do need it.
Yeah, we do this week after recent events. Also joining us as usual as well. I say it couldn't be a Tuesday Clinic without him either. It is, of course, Adam. How you doing, Adam? You okay?
Yeah, not so bad, gents. Good to see you both after a little break. And like Melvin just said, I think it's overdue. I'm in need of a clinic tonight.
We definitely are in need of a clinic tonight after recent events, as we said. So we need to get it off our chest, as it were. But as it says at the bottom there, sensible Arsenal discussion. We will try to keep it as sensible as we can, which is sometimes quite difficult in the circumstances. And making up the panel tonight, he's back again. Of course, he's started to become a regular again, which is what we want to see. It is, of course, Dorsey. Hopefully, with his microphone issue sorted out off air, he was a little bit. We couldn't hear him. Can we hear him now?
Yeah. Can you hear me all right?
Oh, we can. Fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
It's my my work laptop. It had done an update for some reason, so yeah, it messed a few things up. But yeah, how are we all?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Dorsey.
Yeah, we're pretty good in the circumstances, I guess, as good as we can be. We've got Nigel in the chat there. He says, good evening all, and good evening to you, Nigel. Thanks for watching. And he says that Ajax strip is exceptional. Indeed it is. And it's nice of Melvin to be modelling it for us tonight as well, because it is a fantastic strip. Me and Dorsey, of course, have gone with an Arsenal kit, just, because why not? And Adam has obviously got the hump with Arsenal, so he's wearing a normal shirt.
Adam's got the rolling from work, couldn't be bothered to put a shirt on tonight. But...
No, you made the right choice there. We've got Tracy in the chat as well. She says, hi lads, hope you're well. Yeah, we'll be doing okay in the circumstances, I suppose. Talking about that, I guess there's only one place we can really start tonight's show is we'll have to get it off our chest, get it out of the way nice and early. So let's do it. So last night's game, then Crystal Palace at home. They do seem to have a decent record against us at the Emirates in recent years, and that continued last night. So many things to talk about with the game. I guess really it's difficult to know where to start. I suppose the performance overall for me, apart from the first 10 minutes when we actually looked pretty good, it was, well, to me, it was one of the poorest performances I can see in the circumstances, with the lineup that we had. I mean, Melvin, I'm quite interested to get your thoughts on the performance last night.
Right. Well, when you just said we played well in the first 10 minutes, what game are you talking about? Could be the last 20 games, couldn't it?
Well, yeah, that's
played
true,
well. It's never a shock that we play well in the first 10 minutes, apart from the Spurs game. Take that out of the equation, and then we just don't do anything. We sit back and go, how long we got, which is ridiculous. Whether that's the players or the manager has told them, either way, it's not good news, is it? It's not the way to play football. The successful teams, or the teams that want to be successful, do not play football like that. We're not, with all due respect, a team that's second from bottom, hoping to stave off relegation, and we're 1-0 up against Crystal Palace, and we've got to hold on to get the 3 points. That's not what we should be about, and that's what it was like last night. Sitting there last night, half time came, and I couldn't believe we were winning 1-0. It was a travesty of justice. It really was. It was like we were playing in mud compared to Crystal Palace, and all of their players looked comfortable on the ball. All of them had time on the ball, and all this about chasing after their defenders and trying to close them down. It said you can't do it in ones and twos. You've got to all do it or nobody do it. And that's what happened last night. Aubameyang, the first 20, 25 minutes, was running everywhere and really didn't have the support. But it was just one of those games where you're sitting there going, I've been here before, seen it, done it, and I've nearly got the T-shirt. It was really, I've seen it again. I know we've seen it against Crystal Palace before. Of course we have. I think we went 2-0 up a couple of seasons ago, and we blew it very early on as well. And it's just like other teams as well. We're like, I know that it never happened, but against Spurs, had we a little bit of luck been turned the other way, we could have been 3-2 up and struggling, right? And would you have backed your house or not us not drawing that game? So no. There is something not quite right. And also what it showed last night, that when we played a big team, and they were big, we couldn't handle it. Again, physicality. A number of times that Odegaard, he's not big, so I don't expect it. Odegaard, even Tierney to a degree, got pushed off the ball a few times. I'll come to him later if you like, when we chat later on. But we don't seem to be able to have that when we come against a physical team to beat them, do something about them. We should be better than that. Let's face it. It was a very passive performance. It was going through the motions. Also, you notice it was, what it's similar to? It was similar to Newcastle's performance against Spurs. They started off unbelievable. They were 1-0 up. They could have gone 2 or 3 up, Newcastle. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting there with my son. I said, I don't like this. They're giving the ball away far too much, Newcastle, which they did. And all of a sudden, Spurs got the confidence, got the ball, and got the goals. And it happened with Crystal Palace last night with us. How many times did we get the ball away? And when we gave the ball away, when we actually got the ball, when we were in defensive situation, we got the ball, we had no one to give it to. So it just kept coming back the whole time. So we put ourselves under pressure. Surely we should be better. There should be someone in that club that go, you know what, when we are under the cosh and we're in our own box and they've got all their players near us, there must be a way of us either playing it out or doing something to take the pressure off. Sticking one person on the halfway line, just lumping it up. And I know we ain't got the biggest centre forward in the world. Even a Saka, just to control it for a second, to allow us to move up, because there was no way out. It just go all the time. And this has been for our Arsenal. I'm not knocking Arteta, because other managers do it with us. It seems to be in our genes, in our Calvin Kleins. It's when we need to go up from second to third gear as a team, we cannot do it. If we don't hit the ground running and keep it going, we slip back or stay at the same level. I can't think of, you'll prove me wrong, but I can't think of too many games where we've started badly and then all of a sudden got ourselves out of the trouble. It's just the way it is. No. And there's something, it's like, I don't understand it. It's in our DNA. And the manager's got to sort that out. Whoever the manager is, he's got to sort that out. What else can you say? There's certain individuals. Let's face it. When Lacazette came on, he looked like a world beater compared to the others. He looked like the greatest football of this side of the Mississippi. Having said that, had he started the game, I don't think he would have played like that all the way through. I think his limitations are a 30-minute spell, to be honest with you. But he did look classy when he come on. Those little 1-2s and the balls round the corner, out of the edge of the box, were fantastic. I thought Martinelli looked good, but how disgusting was it when Martinelli had the ball on the wing? He had two defenders literally breathing down his neck, and no one. And he had it for what? Was it a minute or two, Richard? No one went near him.
I know. I mean, I was saying that on the watch along last night at the time. Why isn't someone going to help him, give him some support? And as it turned out, he actually won the corner that we scored the goal from at the end. But he needed some help, and everybody just miles away from him. Where were all his teammates? Nowhere. And I was like, where are you? Help him out. He needs help. And in the end,
what teammates are for, Richard? Isn't that what your teammates normally should do?
Well, you would imagine they should be, but I don't know what was going on. Was in the last minute of a game that we're losing, and we need to keep the ball and try and get it in the box. And he's isolated on his own with two defenders and not an Arsenal player within 20 yards of him. And that I must admit, at the time that was going on, I was saying on the watch along, like, wow, what on earth is happening here? And it turned out, I say, we did win the corner from that attack, actually, from that move. Martinelli won us a corner, didn't he, in the end? And we did score. But yeah, that was shocking for me. You'd imagine that the players would be rushing to help him out and try to keep the ball and create a chance. But, I mean, what surprised me was the fact that last night, as it's been in recent games, is the starting 11 is pretty much the team that Arteta's said he wants. Everybody said he has not had his players. And that was a performance that could have been from last season, could have been from the season before. No difference at all. And, what improvements is there, despite the fact that we have now got the team that technically Arteta at this moment in time wanted? He wanted these players. We've got them. And we're still producing the same level of performances, which is very, very poor again. And, we're unbeaten in 5 games, and we mustn't lose track of that. But how many of those 5 games have we played well in? The first half against Tottenham, that's probably it. We were lucky against Brighton to get a draw. We were very lucky last night to get a draw. We scraped past Burnley away, maybe a bit fortunate. The VAR call for the penalty helped us out there. And then Norwich, we were pretty average and managed to get past the bottom team in the league. So, the 5 games unbeaten is irrelevant to me. We're not playing well enough. We can't keep playing like this because we will lose games sooner or later. Crystal Palace are in the bottom half of the table. In fact, most teams that we've played them in the bottom half of the table recently, and we've struggled. So I hate to think what's going to happen when we start playing some of the better teams, which are coming up in the next few weeks with Leicester, the likes of Leicester, even Villa on Friday, which we'll come on to. I mean, Adam, what were your thoughts, obviously, last night? I mean, it was so disappointing with the players that were playing. It was pretty much, apart from Xhaka, who would have been in the team, it's pretty much our strongest 11, wasn't it, really? That we've got.
It was, and I've got to be honest, when I saw the team announced, I thought, great, good attacking lineup. I was a bit concerned about who was going to play alongside Partey, or was he just going to have one anchor and the others going forward a little bit like he did against Burnley? But I was thinking, I like to see, you obviously want to see a positive team. When you get a positive team, you're thinking, great, that's good, want to see that. And, first, like you just said, first 10, 12 minutes, I was quite relaxed. Great start, pushing forward. It reminded me a bit like of Arsenal and Vieira's days, back in Vieira's days, where we used to literally annihilate teams in the first 15, 20 minutes and be 3-4 up, and then just sit back. I miss those days. But it annoyed me, the fact that after that 10, 12 minutes, they just took their foot off the gas. And you touched on it earlier, and it's got to be coming from the manager. I'm sorry, it's got to be, because as a player, you don't just switch like that, surely, between going 100% full pelt to just stopping. I mean, like Melvin just said, Aubameyang, first 20, 21 minutes was just trying. But he was the only one. After that kind of mark, he was the only one who was really pushing. He was the only one who was really moving. They just seemed really happy to sort of sit back, and that's got to come from the manager. And for me, surely if you have got to go up early and you are in the ascendancy, no matter who you're playing, you push until that ascendancy drops, because in football, it always will drop. It will always drop off because, no one can keep that level of momentum up. Even like we mentioned, the Arsenal back in Vieira's days, after that 20 minutes, half an hour, they needed a break. It's one of these things. Yeah. So why not push it until you physically can't? Because if we would have gone on, Palace were a little bit all over the place in the first 10 minutes because they didn't really expect us to start like that. But it was just so disappointing after that. You're thinking that, why? And I couldn't figure it out. And like you said, got in at half time, and I thought, well, we're lucky here. We're really lucky. Yeah. Palace deserve to be to be in, level. And I think Palace are a decent side. I mean, I'm very impressed with that Conor Gallagher. I know he's a Chelsea player, but every time I see him play, I'm very impressed. And a player like that, I'd love to have. He just does not give up. He's back and forth. And I was thinking, yeah, you can come and join us. That'll be all right. But then the second half, we just didn't get out of the traps at all. Didn't get out of the traps, and I found it really frustrating. I thought Partey probably had the worst game I'd seen him play for us. I mean, he should stop shooting as well for a start. One of the shots, was pretty close, let's be fair. But, he's like John Jensen over again, isn't it, Thomas Partey, for me? It's like, he's going to score one day, but that'll probably be like, we're losing 4-0 or something, and he'll get a goal from 30 yards. But, I mean, I like Partey a lot, but he suffered without Xhaka. I think he really did. Especially with Odegaard next to him. Odegaard's not that holding kind of player. Odegaard needs to be more forward, and I think he really struggled without having that there. And I think maybe he did a bit better with Lokonga in the second half. But again, Lokonga was off the boil last night as well, and he's a youngster. It'll happen, from game to game. But I think what we suffer is because we have got a young team. If you've got one player who's not turning up, you can get around that. But if you've got half your team who are just not on their game, that's where we'll suffer, because they don't have the know-how yet. They just don't have the know-how about, seeing a game through. And it's game management for me. And again, that comes down to the manager for me. It comes down to that manager. I mean, I try and look on the plus points, and it was good to see that we did fight till the end and we did get that equaliser. That part of it pleases me, because there has been so many times in the past where we've given up, or it's just been that long punt. And I think, Lacazette was good when he come on. But again, I completely agree. He's an impact sub now, and he's never going to be like that throughout the whole game. But overall, I think, unfortunately, that's the kind of level we're going to be at, is that kind of Crystal Palace team. We're going to be like mid-table again, I think. We're going to get some good results. We're going to, get turned over. It's just I think we just need to kind of come to terms with it and see it again. I hate the word transition, but we are still transitioning. And we've got the youngsters. The more they play together, the more they are going to build up those relationships. And, the defence was not as good last night. I thought Ben White started pretty well, but then he kind of, got bullied a little bit by Benteke. To be fair, all of our defence got bullied by Benteke. Why is he turning on against us, by the way? What is it?
Because he just knows, doesn't he? He gets his one goal a year, and it's always against us, isn't it? And you knew last night he was going to get a goal in the end, and he did. And he knows he's going to get. He knows he's going to get joy. That's why I think.
Everyone was like, "Oh, Zaha's not been playing." I was like, "Yeah, but Benteke is. He's bound to score."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, frustrating night. At least we didn't lose. And hoping that last minute goal give us a pick up for Friday. But yeah, I mean, I think Villa are a decent side as well, so that'll be interesting. But we'll come on to that later.
No, you're right. Yeah, I mean, Nigel in the chat says, I'm watching Liverpool on split screen. They have a consistency in performance that is distinctly lacking at Arsenal. Yes, that's certainly true. We had something similar with Arsene Wenger in charge. Yeah, we were certainly a lot more consistent in our performances then. And Nigel also says there, I'm not sure that the players respect what Arteta is trying to do, and neither does a section of the fan base. I mean, it's irrelevant in a sense whether the fan base respect it. The players have got to, and if they don't, then that's where there is problems. And it does appear in the performance levels that maybe they don't. And if that's the case, then we have got maybe bigger issues than just what we think. I mean, Dorsey, I know you always miss the positive, and it's great that you are, but could you find too many positives from that last night? And what are you making of the new signings now? They've played 5 or 6 games. Do you see the improvements that they've added in, or is it still too early maybe to judge them yet?
I just want to make a comment on those last 2 comments you brought up, actually. I mean, the first one, why are we comparing us to Liverpool? Yeah, we're not in a position to be. It's a completely unfair comparison. They've had a manager for 7 years, heavy investment. They've been successful over the last few years. We're a million light years away from Liverpool. So, firstly, I'm not sure why we're trying to compare our performances to Liverpool, really. And secondly, it kind of touches on your point, actually. The one thing I didn't think last night is it didn't look like a team that wasn't fighting for the manager. I don't think you get those last-minute winners if you're not fighting. If you're not all putting in the same direction, I don't think you get that last-minute winner. I really don't. So, in terms of the lineup, I don't know why he changed it. I agree that Partey had a poor game, but in his defence, He was left on his own for the whole game. I mean, what do you expect? You're not gonna. I know they call him the octopus, but I mean, Jesus. I mean, it's ridiculous. I don't know why he's played with that many attacking players. I get it. You're at home. You're against Palace, and if you're a Liverpool or you're a Man City, by all means stick 5-6 attacking players in there because they're good enough to be able to do that. But we're not. We need those two holding midfielders, whether that be. I know Lokonga wasn't great when he came on, but again, he's not played a lot of football. But I would have played him, or even at worst case, you stick El Neni in there. At least you know what you're going to get with El Neni. He'll work his socks off. He'll break things up. He'll win the ball back. He won't do anything clever. But so for me, I think that was the first mistake really playing, because despite having that many attacking players on there and the caliber of attacking players that we had, we created nothing. No. We really, really struggled to create anything in that whole game. Now, obviously, the first kind of 10, 15 minutes aside, we did look good. Everyone looked hungry. Everybody was fighting to win the ball back. But yeah, I don't know. There seems to be a fear of losing goals as soon as we score. We got a mentality where we haven't got that killer instinct. We haven't got it, and we haven't got that mentality to say, right, we've got one. Let's go and do it again. It's more the sense that, right, shit, we could win this game, so let's just try and protect a bit what we've got. So it was frustrating. I can't add much more to what Adam and Mark have both said. It was a really, really frustrating performance after that first kind of initial period. And there were some poor performances. I thought Ben White, as Adam was saying, I thought he was decent. He started all right, but the defending for the second goal was, it reminded me of Ryan Giggs in '99 in the FA Cup semi-final when we just backed off. We backed off. Nobody ever looked like they were going to try and stick a foot in. Just go through him. You give away a free kick, just go through him and just stop that attack. And I thought Ramsdale he'll be disappointed with that, given the form that he's in and the fact it's gone pretty much down the middle of the goal. He'll be frustrated with that. But again, it's individual mistakes, isn't it? When you look at the 2 goals we've conceded, it's individual mistakes. Thomas Partey's got caught on the ball. Is that because he hasn't got a midfield partner? Quite possibly. He didn't have anyone to give it to, from what I could see. So we got caught on the ball and we conceded. And then the second one was poor defending from Ben White, and maybe the goalkeeper should be doing a little bit better. But yeah, it's very much the same old. But going back to the last minute winner, I don't think you get that. Like, you don't get those last minute winners unless everybody's kind of in the same boat and pulling in the same direction. So I don't think they're against the manager in any form at the moment. But
I generally would agree that, when you score an important last gasp goal, it tends to suggest a spirit in the team. But it wasn't like we'd spent 5 minutes throwing everything at Crystal Palace. No. That goal came out of nothing, out of nowhere. Yeah. And it was quite a fortunate goal. It was a set piece, as indeed the first goal was, that Crystal Palace didn't manage to clear. And it was a ricochet in the box, and it hit the goalkeeper's legs, and it was a simple finish. It was quite a lucky equaliser. And we showed the spirit to get it. But I say it wasn't like we were bombarding their box for the last 5 minutes looking to get the goal. It was almost like we'd given up. And then suddenly, out of nothing, we win that corner, and we happen to get the goal, which obviously was an important goal. But yeah, I would say normally I would agree that that's a sign of a team that is fighting for the manager and fighting for the club. But that wasn't the impression that we got from the whole spell of that game. Once Crystal Palace went 2-1 up, you couldn't see us scoring another goal. You couldn't. We just didn't look as though we were going to. We wasn't creating anything. We wasn't putting.
You can say the same thing after 20 minutes. We didn't look like scoring from 15 minutes onwards.
But you would expect, wouldn't you, when you're at home and you're losing the game 2-1 and there's 10 minutes to go, that you would throw everything at it. You can understand at 20 minutes we're 1-0 up. You can think, well, yeah, okay, we don't need to score a goal for a bit. We can relax and stuff. You can understand it that in that section of the game, but not in the last 10 minutes when you're losing and you need a goal. You would imagine you'd be throwing everything at it. You'd get your centre halves forward. You'd be throwing the ball into the box. Like you said, they're a big team. and they're a physical team, and that was the only way. Even that corner at the end, Aaron Ramsdale wanted to come up for that corner. He looked over to the bench. He was shouting, "Can I go up?" And obviously he was told, "No, you're in the last kick of the game. You're losing. Why not throw your keeper in there?" And that must have been Arteta said no. And what is wrong with him, honestly? You would put your keeper up there, wouldn't you? Regardless, it's the last kick of the game. Even if Crystal Palace get another goal and win 3-1, it doesn't matter. At least try and get the goal. And in the end, we managed to get it anyway, fortunately. But why didn't he let Ramsdale go up? It's madness for me. Absolutely crazy. Because what did we have to lose at that point? Nothing. And you're right what you say. We do seem very risk averse. The manager's risk averse. The team are risk averse. We don't want to take too many chances. But in the last second of injury time, when you're losing at home, you've got to throw your goalkeeper in there. You've got to. And he was told not to go. I mean, if I was him, I would have just gone anyway, because you might as well. But we ended up getting the goal, so I suppose you have to kind of say it was the right choice maybe in the end. And Nigel says there, and there's been a trend installing former players as managers amongst some of Europe's most prestigious clubs. Yeah, there has been. Although it was successful with Pep and Zidane, the strategy has fallen flat in England. It has a little bit, yeah. Maybe that's because they had the wrong former players that's in charge, maybe. And that was something I did want to touch on. Obviously, for Crystal Palace last night, there was a former Arsenal player in their dugout, and he looked very frustrated at the end that his team hadn't won. And I actually did feel a little bit sorry for him in a way, because they deserved to win that game. And, we were slightly fortunate to get the draw. But what I wanted to really look at was what you guys sort of made of the job that he's doing at Crystal Palace, bearing in mind they've had a big turnover of players as well over the summer, and it's a rebuild job. And the sort of style of play, it's for me, what I've seen at Crystal Palace, I've watched a bit of them this season because of Vieira. They seem to have completely changed the style that they had under Roy Hodgson, and a lot of sort of new players as well. And it seems to be, yes, not winning games, they're not losing many games either. They're a difficult team to play against. And he seems to have already, they're quite aggressive played, and he's already got that across in what, 2 months that he's been there. And Arteta's nearly 2 years into his Arsenal job. Why hasn't he managed to put his or maybe this is his personality, it's just very flaky, and I don't know. I mean, what have you made of Patrick Vieira's job at Crystal Palace so far? I know it's still early days, he's only had 8 games, whatever it is. You can see a style, can't you? You can see what he's doing there already.
I think you're right. I mean, for me, that's the first time I've seen Palace play football. Normally, it's get the ball, lump it up to Saha, and they still beat us. They actually played football. As I said before, they had time on the ball. They played as a team. Everyone knew what job they were doing. Everyone had when any Palace player got the ball, he had 1 or 2 options to give it to somebody else. That was what I noticed. I noticed as well that it's basically what he's done as well. He's changed a lot of players. He's done it in one transfer a window with I don't know what he's spent. I don't think he spent a fortune. No. He's changed the identity of the team and the way they play in, say, 4 or 5 months. The transfer window and the beginning of the season, and that's a very, very good job. I mean, Palace would have been a lot of people's bets to go down. Lost a lot of players out of contract, too old. New manager, forget who the new manager is. And they seem to have a purpose to what they're doing. It's basically it's a non-mirror of us. It's completely the other side of the seesaw, and it really is a bit depressing. I'm not saying that he's going to be the greatest. I hope he is. I honestly wish Patrick Vieira every success. I would really like that, because he gave me so much joy watching him play. Any success he gets, even at any expense, he's fantastic. I think he was fantastic for us. Anyway, but I'm not saying he will be the greatest. He could be, so as you say, early days. It could be a honeymoon period, but he has changed the way they play. He's changed the shape, the dynamic of the team. And for him to do that in such a short period of time with no money, he hasn't got, billions behind him. You've got to take your hat off to him. If they might finish if things go wonky above us. Then what do we do? We've got to scratch our heads, do we? We go, what happened there? Well, we know what happened there. So I think this Palace team might, they're all youngsters as well, remember, a lot of them. A lot of youngsters there, and they're very good on the ball. I noticed a few of them as well. They could play the game. I think they could actually go from strength to strength this season. And as I say, they might even, not that it's such a great thing nowadays, but be above us at the end of the season. Very impressed I was last night.
I was impressed with last night, but I've been impressed with what I've seen. I've seen 3 or 4 of their games actually, because I was interested to see how Patrick Vieira will get on with them. And every time I've seen them, I've been impressed. That even the games that they've lost, they've played well. They lost 3-0 at Liverpool, but they were unfortunate to lose 3-0. And their last 2 games, they conceded. Well, Brighton they conceded a stoppage time equaliser, a game they should have won. Last night they conceded a stoppage time. That's 4 extra points they should have got in the last 2 games or 3 games, whatever it was that they played. So they could be above us even now with a little bit more luck on their side. So yeah, I mean, you're right. They don't have. They spent not a lot of money on a rebuilding job, and yes, they're Crystal Palace. They haven't got the money to spend, but because of that, they've got to get the best out of what they've got. Yeah, they've got 1 or 2 more experienced heads in there, and that's maybe helped as well. MacArthur, of course, who I will come on to a little bit later. Miholovic as well. They're quite experienced players. Benteke is an experienced player as well. So they have got that little bit of experience and some good young players as well. And obviously, Conor Gallagher from Chelsea, as we said, has been doing a great job for them as well. He's made a big difference. And even without Zaha last night, their best player technically, they still produced that sort of a performance away from home. And it was interesting after the game when Patrick Vieira was interviewed, and he said that he'd learnt a lot from his previous manager, obviously referring to Arsene Wenger, I would assume, the way that he said it. And you can kind of maybe see that could be the path he's going to take managerially, whereas Arteta seems to have been trying to follow in Pep's footsteps. And you can see the difference in the style of play as well, and that maybe is coming across perhaps. And maybe we've got the wrong former Arsenal captain maybe, but we'll come on to that maybe a little bit later on. I mean, Adam, what have you made of Crystal Palace? Have you watched a lot of them, apart from last night, obviously, where they were very good last night?
I've seen quite a bit of them, actually. And I think when we do the predictions, I keep predicting them to do okay and get results. One, because like everyone, I want Vieira to do well. Like Melvin said, I absolutely love Vieira. Like, for me, he was the best midfielder in the Premier League era. I just think. But I think I want him to succeed. I'm hoping that he'll succeed enough maybe to be in the frame for our job one day, obviously. But I think what's been impressive for me is that they've only won, I think, 1 game, Palace, but they've drew 5. And they've only lost 2. So as a new manager coming into a new league, he's already made that team difficult to beat. And that's a great foundation for me. That, to me, shows he's a really astute manager. That he maybe knows that, like you just said, he's lost a lot of experience there and he's brought a lot of youngsters. He's got a lot of youngsters in his squad who have come through the last couple of years. But he's kind of looked back and thought, well, I can't go out and buy a whole new team because they don't have the resources for that. So he's brought in key areas. He's brought the 2 new centre-backs, one from Chelsea, who I think, every time I see him play, can't pronounce his name, but the youngster from Chelsea. He went for 25 million or something. But every time I see him play, he looks really good. He's athletic, he's strong, he's fast. And I think he looks to be a real decent player. And even the Anderson, who I thought looked pretty ropey at Fulham last year, he looked pretty good. He looks pretty good to me as well, quite composed. And then, they got Gallagher in midfield and then they brought Edouard up front. So, obviously Gallagher's on loan, but he's kind of signed these players in the key positions and made them difficult to beat. They don't score as many goals, I think, as they probably need to. But again, Edouard's only just getting going in the Premier League, and I think he's already got as many as Aubameyang this season anyway. So he's only going to get more used to it. And that's the thing for me, that they set themselves up difficult to beat. And when they do get the ball, they don't just lump it. They do try and play football. And and I think that they've got the makings of a very good side. And I think possibly Vieira, from what I'm gathering, I've got a friend who's a Palace fan. They were trying to offload Zaha in the summer to get a bit of cash in so he could kind of buy his own players. That doesn't surprise me, but I think, not a lot of people are going to give the money that they want now for Zaha because he's obviously getting older each transfer window. I mean, probably a couple of windows ago, you're probably worth about 40, 45. Now you probably get about 20 for him. So, that's the thing. But you can't rule him out. He's a proven Premier League player, Zaha, especially with that club. So it's only going to be a strong thing. But I love Vieira and I really want him to do well. My son actually said to me last night, my son's 12, and he said to me, "Oh, who was a better midfielder, Arteta or Vieira?" I just laughed. I literally just laughed. And he was like, "What's that stupid question?" I was like, not really a stupid question because you're 12. I'll let you off on that one. And I said, when you've got a bit more time, we'll look at some videos. I said, we'll look at some YouTube stuff. and I just left it there. Like, but that's the thing. You need some education about Vieira, I think. I'm looking forward to showing.
That's going to be an interesting question. Maybe in a few years' time, they'll be saying who's a better manager, Arteta or Vieira, and we probably end up coming to the same conclusion as we did as a player as well, possibly at the way things are going at the moment. I mean, it's still early days, though. Let's be fair. I mean, Nigel says we shouldn't underestimate Vieira's prestige as a player being a factor in garnering respect from the locker room. Yeah, that's a fair point. Can the same be said about Arteta? Well, probably not. And Vieira last night in his interview as well said how much of an Arsenal fan he is. I mean, I'm convinced, and I said it before the game, that I thought that was Vieira almost auditioning for the job in future at Arsenal, and he certainly didn't do himself any harm, did he, last night with the way he conducted himself.
The Palace players are certainly playing for him. You can see.
Yeah, they are, and I agree. He's got that respect, hasn't he? If Patrick Vieira walked into the changing room, you'd sit back and say, "Okay, I'm listening to you," because he's Patrick Vieira, isn't he? And he's got that air about him, and that's important as well. But you've got to know what you're doing. You've got to say the right things and be able to do the job. And he certainly, so far, is proving that he can at the moment, and it is still early days. I mean, Dozzy, you must be impressed with what Vieira has done, and the fact he's Vieira as well. He's just an absolute hero for all of us, and he looks like he's getting to grips with managing in the Premier League very quickly.
Yeah, it certainly looks that way. I'm not going to get too carried away. You always get a bit of a bounce with a new manager, but I do agree. I think he's done a very good job since he's come into the Premier League. You look at his previous managerial roles, he's not really pulled up any trees anywhere else, is he? And that's why I maybe think. I mean, listen, he was perfectly suited to the Premier League as a player. He knows the league inside out, so that's going to go a long way in terms of him being able to field a team that he knows can compete. And he's certainly done that. And listen, I'm with everyone else. I mean, I haven't got a bad word to say against Vieira. The fact he hasn't got a statue outside the ground, he didn't get a testimony, all of that stuff, that stinks to me, and that should have been rectified because, for me, I agree with everyone else. He's the best midfielder that's played in the Premier League by some distance as well. For me, the guy had everything, and I'd love to see him at Arsenal one day if he can prove himself. I agree with everything you've all said. He gains that respect the second he walks through the door, and the fight and the determination and the discipline that he had as a player is going to install that into any team that he manages. So, and that's that's what we've lacked for, probably George Graham. we were never really that obviously we had Vieira in the side when we had that fight, but in terms of as a team ethic, we weren't necessarily like that, were we? So, no. But yeah, he's done a great job. I'm not going to get too carried away about thinking, let's get Arteta out and Vieira in right now. Let's give him a year or two to really get his feet under the table and see how he gets on. But I think in terms of Arsenal, people just need to manage their expectations better. I don't know what your boys' expectations are for us this season. I expect us to finish higher than 8th, certainly with the money that we've invested. But listen, that's a young team. That's a young team. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to be inconsistent. Unfortunately, that's the path that we've chosen. We tried to do it a different way before. We spent big. We made some really, really poor signings that we thought would fix the problem overnight. That didn't work. So we've taken a different route in the hope. I guess a lot of it is hope that these players in 2, 3, 4 years are going to be the real deal and are going to make the difference. But for me, when I look at, what was the average age of that team last night? I'll be staggered if it was above 24. Absolutely staggered. And you take a Aubameyang out of that team, it's probably 23, 22, 23. So I think we just need to manage our expectations a little bit better. I don't expect us to be pulling up any trees. I don't expect us to be going on a run of 10 games where we don't lose. It's not going to happen. So the performance was frustrating last night for sure, and the result was equally frustrating. But I think that's the ride that we're on, unfortunately, and I think we just need to get used to that with the fact we've got young players and we need to support them. Because as soon as we start jumping on their backs, it's not going to help.
No, I do agree with it, and I do agree with what you're saying about managing the expectations. But unfortunately, what that means is that we as fans have got to really buy into the fact that we might have to wait 2 or 3 or 4 years. But, we've now got Newcastle's investment. They're going to be another team to add into the mix. We're going to drop further behind in those 2 or 3 years. And I don't think we've got 2 or 3 years to wait for this team to maybe develop or maybe not be able to. And is Arteta able to develop them in the way that we would want them to? I mean, to me, what I've noticed, the main thing for me between Vieira and Arteta, and it's early days in both of their managerial career, is Vieira's been a number one at every club he's managed, hasn't he? He was number one in America, number one in France, and now he's number one in England. Arteta's always been a number 2, and I think he's destined to always be a number 2. And I think Vieira's always destined to be a number 1. And whether he'll be a top manager, I don't know. We don't know yet. It's too early to say. But what he is going to be is he's going to be a manager for the rest of his career, isn't he? Somewhere, whether it's in England, whether it's abroad again, whether it is at Arsenal. Whereas Arteta, I think when he eventually loses a job at Arsenal, which is inevitably will he go on to be a manager again, or will he just end up being a number 2 somewhere else, which I think is more likely for him to be, because I think that's what he's suited to personally. And that's the difference for me. Crystal Palace have got a manager. We've got a good coach maybe, but not a manager. And unfortunately, that's not what we need. And all these young players, they need better guidance. They need more experienced players around them. And I think they need a manager who can get the best out of them all individually, because we're starting to notice already some of the new players who started off pretty well, apart from Ramsdale's the only one. All the others, their performances have been pretty average. The new players that's come in, Tommy Asu's been poor for 2 games now. I know he's a lot of travelling around as well, but if he's tired, don't play him. And Ben White's been very, very up and down, more down than up, if we're totally honest. Lokonga, as we said, a young player, he's been in and out of the team, not really settling. Tavares isn't really getting much of a game. He maybe deserves a bit more time, actually, Tavares, from what he's done when he's played. Then we've got obviously Ødegaard, who we had last season, and we've come back, but he's not. He's sort of like this to me. Why Ozil never worked out under Arteta? Because Arteta wanted Ozil to do a more defensive job like Ødegaard is, and Ozil wasn't going to do that because that's not his game. And Ødegaard's struggling to do that job as well, isn't he? We saw last night, we saw against Brighton, we saw in games before when he's playing deeper. He can't really do that job very well because it's not his natural game. And Arteta's got to understand his players better, and he's got to. By now, he should have done. He's had most of them players, or certainly a lot of them, for quite a while. He's had Ødegaard for nearly a year, and he doesn't seem to know the best place. And as Neil's put in a chat about Martinelli, mentioned Martinelli's name. He says Martinelli never gets a chance, so we'll be off to look. I mean, Martinelli's another one, isn't he? Why is Arteta not able to get him in the team, get him playing more minutes? Because we know what he's capable of doing. We saw what he did a couple of years ago when he first came into the team. Shane had put a comment in there. Would Emery get top 6 with this squad? I don't know, to be honest. He got top 6 with probably a worse squad when he was there. Would Vieira get top 6 of us? Again, difficult to say because it's very early in Vieira's career. But these are questions that I think are right to be asked. And I agree with Dorsey. We should expect to finish higher than 8th. But my expectations for Arsenal isn't to mud along in mid-table for 3 or 4 years, because that isn't what my expectations of Arsenal are. And we can manage our expectations with the current manager, and we have to, because we know we're not going to, I don't believe we're going to be able to progress. So my expectation of this manager is mid-table, but that's not what my expectations are for the club. I expect us to be doing better. I expect us to be improving from where we were. We've reached what I consider to be as low as it should be for us with the money that we've spent and with the players that we've got. So anything other than progression is not good enough. So that's what my personal expectations are. I mean, I don't know what you guys think. I mean, what are your expectations, Melvin? Are you happy to buy into this process that might take 2 or 3 years with these young players, or with Newcastle's money, do you think that we're just going to end up getting further and further away from where we want to be? We all want to be better, don't we? We all want to be challenging again, because that's what it's about, isn't it, at the end of the day?
We've got to lower our expectations as a football fan of Arsenal now. Forget it. We are not going to win the league in the next 2, 3, 4, 10 years. I wouldn't have thought, seriously. 10 years. It's not going to happen. We are now as it used to be, the Evertons of this league. Always be there. And it's a horrible expression, and I was going to let someone use it on their pod as the heading. We are there now, I'm afraid, to make up the numbers. We are not going to get relegated. It's a horrible thing to say. I used to say that about Spurs to their supporters, friends of mine, which are still friends, believe it or not. I used to say, well, when we were doing well, I used to say, well, you're having a go at Arsenal, though we're winning stuff, but all you do, you make up the numbers, didn't you? That's what you're there for. I used to hate it. I'm afraid that's where we are now. That's our expectation. You know, might have a cup run, might do this, might beat Spurs, go 1-2-0 down to Spurs to the Emirates, and then win. How wonderful is that? And that's all we've got to look forward to. But Spurs used to only look forward to beating us. That's all they had. And really, it's not reversed because they're not winning anything. But we are now Spurs Mark II. In fact, we're in a worse position than that because when Spurs had a poor team, the teams above them weren't that good. They didn't have that much more money than Spurs until Chelsea came in. Now there's so many other teams that can outbuy Spurs, outbuy us, that really we aren't in the game, and we've got to accept that. And I think my expectation, I want my club, Arsenal, to get in the top 4. I don't think they could possibly do it this year, obviously. 2 or 3 years they might, but you've got to hope. The only hope we've got is that other clubs mess up, because we ain't gonna leapfrog clubs if they play to their potential. The other clubs, we've got to really hope that everyone has a bad season and we can get in that top 4. At the moment, Man United, for all good that they've had a great run, Man United, but they ain't as good as the results show. Let's be honest. And I would have liked in a couple of years, if everything stays the same, which it won't, that we go, you know what, we can take Man United this year. I can't see it ain't going to happen this year, right? Because not because of Man United, because of us. I would like to think in 2 or 3 years that we are ready for any of those top 4, whoever they may be, probably be the same top 4 as tonight or today. We're ready. If any of them drop, we're there to take over their mantle. And we're not in that position yet. And that might take 2 or 3 years just to get at that level. To get to the top, really, you're talking about, you need another fairy tale to happen. And it ain't going to happen.
The thing is, take the manager out of the equation. I don't care who's the manager, right? It might be Arteta. It's the club. It's the whole club's mentality. The amount of investment that we would need to get anywhere near that top 4 is 3 or 4 times the amount of money that we invested in the summer, which is why Arteta's had to take a different path. If they give him a blank checkbook, he probably is buying different players with more experience, with players that are ready to make a difference now. But it's the mentality of the club from top to bottom. It's, Arteta is. I'm not defending him because he made mistakes last night. He's made plenty of mistakes in the past, and the one thing that frustrates me is you can look at all of those individual players, and if a hand on my heart, I don't think any of them have really drastically improved under his guidance, really, and that's the one thing that strikes me, which is a concern. But the problem is that the owners that you've got at the club, the way that the club is run, they want a yes man, and that is exactly what Arteta is. He's going to be there. It's his first managerial job. He's grateful to be in the job. You can see he cares about the club. You can see he wants to do well, but he hasn't got the experience and he hasn't got the tools to go with it, and he hasn't got the experience around him. And I know we've discussed that on previous shows about the lack of experience around him is just as important as his own experience. If he's got other people around him, different coaches, and then that makes a huge difference. But you've got no one in that club that has got any experience in the role that they're doing, and that for me. And Melvin's right. We ain't winning the league in 10 years, in the next 10 years, not a chance. No. Because we're not, unless someone comes in and unless someone buys out the Cronkies and we do something different, this is us for the foreseeable, unfortunately. And unfortunately, Melvin's right. We are going to be a number now. And I guess that's where we kind of need to not accept it because it's not good enough for Arsenal Football Club, but that is the situation that we're in, and until the owners change, someone with a bit of a ruthless streak can just say, and if they need to cut ties with Arteta, that's fine. I'm not against changing the manager; it's not a problem, but it's who you bring in, and can they do anything different? Because are they going to be given the tools to do anything different? And that is why I am behind Arteta at the moment, because in terms of what we can go and get, he's probably as good as we can go and get at the moment. Who's going to accept the tools that he's given?
Yes, to a certain degree. I wouldn't necessarily say he's the best we could get. He's probably one of the better ones, but it's difficult to say because it's his first managerial job. I mean, we talked about Vieira. I don't see any reason why we couldn't have got Vieira, when he was in France. we could have probably got him then. He had more experience as a manager than Arteta did. Also,
did he not get sacked from these?
No,
he did get sacked. Every manager gets sacked, don't they?
Yeah, he got sacked.
Yeah, he got sacked, but every manager gets sacked at some point. And some clubs it doesn't work for them, and other clubs it does. And that's the life of a manager, isn't it? I mean, how many times has Sam Allardyce been sacked? He always gets another job. Someone takes him on because they know he can do certain jobs at certain clubs. And yes, Vieira would have been a risk at the time, but then Arteta was a massive risk. And would Vieira have demanded the sort of money and transfers that other top managers would? Probably not, because he lacks that experience as well, doesn't he? So I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say Arteta. If Arteta is the best we can get, then we are seriously up the creek without.
This is my argument. If you get rid of Arteta and you bring Vieira in, you're taking the same risk and potentially delaying any progression for another 2 or 3 years. For me, as much as I want Vieira to be a success, of course I do. But he hadn't done enough for me to justify. And I'm not saying Arteta's done anything to justify getting the Arsenal job before. People jump on me for that, but Vieira hadn't done anything in the past to say, well, let's take that risk. And if we do that, if we'd have done that in the summer, for example, you're taking another risk at putting yourself back another 2 or 3 years. I don't see the benefit of doing that.
In a way, you're right, but then having said that, back in the day, a long time ago, we took a risk on George Graham, a former Arsenal player. Didn't have any top level experience. He was at Millwall. He'd been coaching before that. We took a chance on him at a time when we had a lot of young players lacking direction, not really knowing where we were going, and it turned out to be a good gamble because it worked really well. And yes, sometimes it might not have worked with George Graham, and we might have ended up going back down again. But ultimately, it's historically we've shown that it can work. And with and I think Patrick Vieira, because of, as it's been mentioned before, the prestige that he's got, and you can't tell me that he wouldn't lift everybody at the club, from the players, from the fans, to everybody.
I'm not saying that. I completely agree.
And I don't believe that Arteta is the best that we could get. I think we could. I'm not saying Vieira's the right choice either necessarily. I think he's a better choice at the moment on evidence that we've seen. But I think we can. I don't know. I agree. It is the club the club's ambition is where the problem lies. The lack of ambition at the club, as opposed to the players or the manager individually. I agree. And unfortunately, us as fans are stuck in this situation where our club hasn't got the ambition that we want as fans. Like Melvin said, he wants us to be challenging in the top 4 again. Of course, we all do. We want to be challenging for titles and cups and winning things and stuff like that, don't we? Because that's what, as Arsenal fans and as Arsenal as a club, that's what we should expect from Arsenal. Because that's historically where we are. And we have now, should we now just accept the fact that, okay, let's just write off the next 4 or 5 years because the club ain't got no ambition? In that case, then why should we spend money on season tickets? Why should we spend money on these nice shirts? Why should we engage ourselves with the club if that's the case? If they're not bothered, why should we be bothered? But they know we are bothered because it's deep inside us and we can't just let it go, can we? And we're kind of stuck. We're stuck in this situation where we've got to accept, almost because we've got no choice, we've got to accept that Arsenal have got no ambition and that we're quite happy to prod along in 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th place for the next 3 or 4 years and hopefully at one point get better, rather than looking at it's more about the direction, isn't it? Liverpool had 2 or 3 poor seasons, didn't they, when Klopp first joined before, but they had a direction. They wanted to get back to the top. And we haven't got that direction in this club at the moment, have we? And I agree, maybe the manager wouldn't be necessarily make a lot of difference. I do believe other managers could get more out of these lot of players, and we'd maybe see better results and more enjoyable football. But that's maybe a slightly different issue. I mean, Adam, what's your kind of as your ambitions sort of changed for the club? I mean, we all want the best, don't we? We all want Arsenal to be challenging again, don't we? Because that's what it's what every fan wants at the end of the day, whatever they say.
It's one of these things. I mean, what you just said about the club moving direction. I think we possibly are getting a direction now, purely based on the transfer activity in the summer, the kind of players we bought, and I think that that potentially for me is the fact we're going to buy youngsters now. We're going to buy, we're going to bring through the youngsters because one of the reasons is we're not going to be able to attract the big names to come to us because of the big clubs out there with the money. So because we're not
Europe. Europe as well.
In Europe. So because we can't, we've been forced to choose that route, I think, because of it. So I think the club have had to say, right, and we ain't going to be able to attract the top players or maybe even the second level players, at the moment, because so many other clubs who are, let's be honest, haven't got as high a stature as Arsenal, are in the European competitions, can pay higher wages. So we've got to now compete at a lower level, but hoping, because let's be honest, football is a lot of it is about hope, hoping things will work out.
Yeah.
Let's put our faith, let's put our hope in this young manager who wants to sign these young players and hope that it might work. Because football for me is like, there's no guarantees in football. I mean, we've seen even some of the rich clubs who have been really rich and wealthy come in. You remember QPR a few years back when they got bought out? Everyone was like, oh, they're going to be the next massive thing. You know, on paper, they're like, I think, the richest owners in Europe. And that didn't work out for them. So there's no guarantees. And then, you know, before you know it, they went back down. They're, you know, still in the Championship, and now they're working their way back up again. So there's no guarantees in football. I mean, we do have to be realistic. The fact that, you know, Newcastle getting this investment is, let's be honest, probably going to knock us down a tier, another peg. I do think what Melvin just says, we're very much also runs at the moment. We very much are. You know, I think we are going to be competing to get in the top 6, let alone the top 4. You know, but there's always that belief that, you know, we might, unearth a few gems. You know, you always look in the YouTube, you look at Charlie Patino, who looks, whenever I see clips of him, he looks incredible. But, you know, can he cut it in the Premier League right now? No, probably not. People are like begging for him to be given a chance. But you've got to be careful with this kind of player. But maybe next season and the season after, you might see him come through and you don't know where we're going to be. I want to just see us compete. You know, I can kind of handle losing games if we're competing. You know, if we're putting our all into the matches and we get beaten by a better team, I'll be like, fair enough, we tried. You know, I coach kids' football team, and that's one of the things we always say to the boys. We don't mind if you lose. We just want you to compete. We just want you to, you know, leave it all out there. You know, leave it out there so you've got no kind of regrets. And in many respects, that's the way I kind of feel about Arsenal at the moment. I want us to at least leave it all out there. And if all out there and we lose to a better team or we lose to a bit of bad luck, then one of those things, it's football. I just want to see a team who are committed and can compete on the pitch, because we're not going to be able to compete off the pitch, like Dorsey said, unless we do get a massive investor come in. I mean, you can't say again, the Cronkies have, it's not like they haven't invested. They have spent a lot of money, especially over the past few windows. Whether they've spent it rightly, that remains to be seen, and that fundamentally is down to people like Edu. You know, we spoke enough about him before, so I'm not going to get onto that one tonight. But yeah, I just want to see us compete. I mean, the Newcastle situation doesn't really surprise me, doesn't really worry me, because we've seen here and done that before. You know, we'll see whether it works out or not. Who knows? You know, I think they're, you know.
Don't be surprised to see them get relegated this season.
I wouldn't. I mean, to be fair, I mean, like, I think it's, you know, because in January it's always harder to get players anyway. You know, they can't just go and throw money at players already, and like, there's no guarantees anything. So, yeah, for me, they're not a great side. I think as a club, they've got massive potential as a club. You know, from when, and a couple of times when I've been up to Newcastle, it's a great city. I know, you know, Rich, you live up that way, don't you? But it's a great city, and the fans are passionate, and it's a very captive audience. And I think that, you know, as a club and a city, they probably needed that, and they're probably looking for it. But like Dorsey just said, they could quite easily go down this year. You know, and then what are the investors going to think then? Because no matter who you are, the best players are not going to want to go and play in the Championship, are they?
Yeah, but the worry is... Sorry, Richard. Sorry. The worry I've got is that what happened if they would have bought Spurs? Because their owner, the Spurs owners, will sell at a price. Our owners won't. And if someone else comes along now, then we are in deep ones, boys. Deep ones. Because our owner, as much as he spent a lot of money. I agree with what you said. He spent a fortune, our owner, but to a certain level. To a certain level. Like he squeezed the bottom of the toothpaste out. Where other owners, they got loads of the stuff. They got jars of it, right? And I just think if the Spurs, as I said before, the Spurs owners will definitely sell at the right price. And who's to say someone a country doesn't come along and goes, we'll have you, and they will sell. And then we are really, well, I don't know what we do. I'll take up cricket or something. You know?
We don't want to think about that, do we, Melvin? We don't want to think about Tottenham getting a takeover, do we? I'm
a bit upset. I don't look at Sky Sports anymore. I can't be bothered with it, to be honest with you. It just bores me. But if I did, would I have seen your name on the Newcastle list, Richard? They were going after local talent, I heard, up there for the manager's job.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, I mean, I might have been on the list. You never know. It's quite possible. But I don't know if I could if I could accept the offer anyway, really. But anyway, we'd have to see. But there's been a few comments come in. Nigel there says George Graham, Arsene Wenger, and Herbert Chapman were borderline statesmen in addition to being brilliant coaches. That's the caliber of man needed to carry this club forward. It is, but it isn't the sort of manager that the club as a club want to take the club forward. Clearly, Neil says, we're going back obviously to the talk about players who have maybe not progressed.
Yeah,
Tien's dropped off. He's been very, very average this season so far. He's definitely dropped down. We put a comment on before. It also says it's such a poor player management. It is indeed. He was better under Emery, as were some of the others. Aubameyang as well, of course. Going back to Newcastle as well, Neil says now Newcastle have joined the oil business. That's another rung of the ladder, which we have to negotiate. Yeah, we've mentioned that. Exactly right, it is. And Nigel as well says we also shouldn't analyse Arsenal in isolation. The football league is shifting around us with Newcastle being the latest case. But yeah, it is shifting, and it's shifted a lot since we sorted out moving away from Highbury. The football landscape's changed completely, hasn't it? With Chelsea getting the investment, Man City getting the investment, Newcastle now, and the way football's gone. Neil also agreed with Melvin's comment earlier when we were talking about that. And also with Dorsey there, he says spot on, who has progressed, well said. He's definitely a yes man, lacking experience. He is, and unfortunately, the club are saying yes to him at the moment. Neil also says for me, the underlying issue is the owners always said it always will. Yeah, we've sort of just mentioned all that as well. These comments did go on 5 minutes ago when we were talking about this. He says also as well, they're not bothered as long as the club fuels their pockets. Yeah, that seems or fuels their American football club's pockets, really. We need owners that not only safeguard the assets of the club, but also give a shit about progression, nice football leading on to success. Well, of course, that's what we would love. That's what all fans would love, really, wouldn't they, I suppose? And Nigel says that the Super League debacle tells you everything you need to know about Arsenal's ownership. America is the home of capitalism, and those very principles are being employed to run the club. It certainly seems that way. And he also says that Arsenal is a hollow money-making asset in their eyes. Again, that certainly seems to be. Neil says we're a financial institution, not a football club anymore. And unfortunately, sadly, that does seem to be true as well. Neil also says that it's not just about spending money. It's about accountability when we're underperforming, and that lies with the board. It does, and they seem reasonably happy, I suppose. And it also says if they want to run it as a business, then the board needs answers when the business is flagging. Well, the business probably is doing okay as a business, isn't it? It's just on the football pitch, we're not competing where we should be. And it was there from a performance perspective. Yeah. And unfortunately, we're not, the owners, I don't think, are judging us on that, what we're doing on the pitch necessarily, are they? They're looking at the bank balance of the club and, the fact that they are desperate to sell us so much merchandise constantly on the website is kind of, that's their business model, isn't it? As opposed to trying to get people to want to buy tickets to come to the stadium and watch the games. And it seems to be.
No wonder Debenhams went under. Arsenal are outselling them, I tell you. The amount of collections that bloody come out nowadays.
Yeah, no, you're right. You are right. And I mean, it's madness, really. And it's not just how much new stuff they keep bringing out. It's the way that they keep pushing it on the website, on social media, when they should be trying to promote people buying tickets to the game to come and watch the team, not buy all their.
Fashion brand, like Arsenal's become a brand, like as a clothing brand now.
Yeah, you're right.
Those kits that come out last year, which were like just concept kits that were never going to be worn in games and that. Yeah, they look great, but it's all about that.
I think you're right. A fashion brand's a good way of looking at it. Maybe that's what we're a cash cow for the Americans and a fashion brand for the world, and that seems to be where we are, and we're probably quite good at that, actually. So if there was a league table for the best clothes and the best clothing lines in the Premier League, we'd probably be we'd be challenging in the top 5 then, wouldn't we? Maybe even challenging for the title, possibly. There's some nice gear from Adidas, to be fair. But unfortunately, that's not what we want.
Richard, the thing is, like after last night's performance, you turn on your computer and you get adverts, Arsenal on Twitter or something, advertising gear. Just give it a rest for a day, mate. Why can't they read the room?
Yeah, I know, yeah. Makes me laugh that when I see it. Straight after the game, isn't it? Look, by the latest Arsenal.
Yeah, no.
We've just up against Crystal Palace.
It's like this morning
out on Friday. Do you know what I mean?
This morning I had an email through from the club. Arsenal's new winter collection. It's like, it's the day that I'm going to look at it. Seriously. One, it's very mild outside at the moment. Two, we were shit last night. Do you know what I mean? It's like, come on, who's dealing with this?
Yeah, I mean, Robin's right. Read the room, yeah, exactly. And they don't seem to be today because it just annoys me every time I see it, and I'm sure it annoys everybody else as well. And it's crackers, really. obviously we will look ahead to the Aston Villa game. Just before we do that, we have to do our usual weekly slot, going back in time.
Oh, right.
We're going to maybe indulge me a little bit this week, just because it was, in fact, on Sunday when I wanted the Crystal Palace games to have been on Sunday, because it marked 40 years since my first game to the day, and it would have been obviously seeing Patrick Vieira come back, and I was all ready to get tickets and get travel down and everything like that to go to the game, and then move it to Monday, which completely buggered up that idea. But anyway, not to worry. We are going to go back and look at this season anyway. I can only apologise to Adam and Dorsey, because I know you two wasn't even born when the 1981-82 season. Oh, you was born, was it? Oh, you was one. Oh, okay.
I was just.
But yeah, I know Dorsey wasn't born, so I do apologise to you two tonight, because I know it was a season that you won't have any actual physical memories of, and there's not an awful lot of footage around of it either, because it wasn't the greatest season in our history. In fact, it had a lot of similarities with this season, actually, because we couldn't score goals then either, and we didn't concede too many. We wasn't scoring any goals, and we sort of muddled along in mid-table most of the season. But we did put together a decent run and ended up finishing 5th, which wasn't too bad. But that actually was the first season that 3 points for a win came in as well. So slight sort of difference in the way that the league table looked at the number of points that teams got. But for Arsenal, it wasn't a great season overall. And I say it's got a lot of similarities, I think, to this season actually so far, the way we started that season. A lot of boring games, terrible football, and not looking as though we were going anywhere. And my first game against Man City was probably typical of that. We were actually 18th going into that game. There was 22 teams in the league then, so it's a slightly bigger league, but we were just above the relegation zone going into that game against Man City. And we had 2 young players making their debuts, Chris White. That's another White player at the back, so they're another similarity. And Raphael Mead up front, and he did actually score a goal, Raphael Mead. We won 1-0, which made me happy briefly, I suppose, because it was, my first game and we got a win. But obviously, I was young then, so I didn't really care that we weren't very good, I suppose. I hadn't seen anything else. I never expected anything else. And, Dorsey talked about expectations before. My expectations then were, well, I don't care. I just want to be at the ground, see the game, and that's it. And if we win, we win. And if we don't, we don't. And that tended to be more enjoyable, maybe, from my point of view, because you didn't have that pressure of expectation, maybe. And it wasn't a great season for Arsenal. And it was the start of, that was the first season that we had without Brady and Stapleton, because Stapleton left that summer and Brady left the year before, and we struggled to get anything going at all. It was a nothing season actually for everybody, probably except me, because it was my first season, so it sticks in my mind maybe more than it deserves to. And I'm talking about it now when maybe we shouldn't really be. I mean, Melvin, have you got any memories of that season? Because there wasn't much that stood out really. That Man City game probably for me more than any, because of that fact, but no other reason.
But you said we didn't score a lot of goals. Did you realise the forwards we had to pick from after Stapleton went? We had Alan Sunderland, which was probably coming to the end of his career, right, with us?
Yeah.
We had Raphael Mead, Paul Vasson, Hankin, and Hawley. I give you those. I'll rest my case, my lord. How are we going to score goals?
So at least then we had a reason not to score goals, because we had terrible forwards.
Yeah.
Now we haven't got that same excuse. We've got world-class forward players, so we can't maybe make the same excuses, maybe. But no, you're right. I mean, Paul Vasson, God rest his soul, injury problems. He probably would have been a half-decent player, wouldn't he? Maybe if he hadn't had the injuries that he had. But yeah, I mean, Hankin and Hawley, we both signed that summer. I think Hankin played 2 games in the League Cup or something, never scored, and Hawley played about 10 or 11 and scored 2 or 3 goals, and he was nowhere near good enough. But that's the level that players we were buying then. And, maybe, I don't know what the expectations are. I mean, obviously, Melvin, you'd seen us win the double in 71 and stuff like that. You'd seen some great times. I mean, what were your expectations of the club at that time in 81? Was it kind of similar to now? Or was it maybe not? Was it worse?
No, I've been through a lot of then. We were on the way down. We had a couple of very good cup runs. We'd won the cup against Man United. We got to the final against West Ham. We got to the final against Ipswich, both disappointing. But we were a cup team, and that season we weren't even a cup team. We couldn't get past the first or second rounds in certain things. But the game I remember,
Tottenham knocked us out of the FA Cup that year, didn't they? Tottenham in the 3rd round away from home, so that was sort of disappointing as well.
At my age, I can't remember older games, but it was such a non-season for me. I don't remember a lot of games, but one that sticks in my mind was the first game of the season we played Stoke at home, and you always, you know, the sun's shining, the grass is green, which wasn't always there after bloody September, was it? And it was like kick off, absolutely wonderful, and we get beat 1-0. Who scores the goal? Lee Chapman.
Chapman,
and I think we signed him on the back of that. I really do. And he wasn't very successful for us. But do you really? I mean, I'm looking through the results. I don't remember this, but we played Man United, obviously home and away. There wasn't a goal scored. Both games were
2-0. Yeah, 2-0. Yeah, that's right.
That's ever happened before.
No, probably not. Actually.
And also, it was such a good season for us that Swansea did the double over us. I mean, it was that type of season. Yeah, they did.
Their first season ever in the top flight in English football as well. That was for Swansea. They did lead the league at the start of the season as well. And I think they finished sixth actually.
I do remember them beating us at Highbury, and they actually tore us one. I can't remember the score. I should have looked it up.
I'll tell you what. You know who scored one of their goals? It was 2-0. Do you know who scored one of their goals that day, Melvin?
No.
Ray Kennedy.
Oh yes, of course. He played midfield for him, didn't he?
I was at that game. He scored in front of North Bank, and it was like everyone was clapping because it was Ray Kennedy that had scored. I'll never forget that. And I'm thinking, I didn't understand at the time. I knew who he was, but you know, a player scores against Arsenal, and the crowd are sort of clapping, and you're thinking, why are they clapping? And then someone said, oh, you know, that's Ray Kennedy. Used to, you know, great player for Arsenal back in the day, sort of thing. And that was a sort of a surreal moment, really. But yeah, he scored one of them goals. They won 2-0 at Highbury. And they finished sixth, I think, that year, which was pretty good, I suppose, for them.
Notts County in the league. I think they beat us as well.
Notts County were.
If it's at Highbury,
they beat us away. You know that we beat them at Highbury 1-0, but they beat us away. They scored in the last minute away from home, and they beat us 2-1. But yeah, it was a strange season, maybe in some ways. Some of the teams, when you look through the teams that are in the first division, then as we said, you know, Notts County and obviously Stoke. It was a strange, Birmingham City, these teams that used to be obviously quite regular in the first division back then, weren't they? You know, even crap teams like Spurs are in the first division and stuff like that. So, you know, it was, but yeah, it was a nothing season. You're right. And I think I probably wouldn't remember much about it had it not been for the fact that it was the first season I was going. I went to a lot of home games in the end and most of them were boring. I remember a game against West Bromwich Albion later, it's a midweek game. We were 2-0 down in the 87th minute and we drew 2-2. That was quite exciting. Alan Sunderland and Raphael Mead scored in that game as well. And then I think straight after that on the weekend we played Aston Villa, who I think they were league champions that season. They'd won the league the year before and they won the European Cup that season. We beat them 4-3 at Highbury as well. That was a good game, a rare, exciting game. And Graham Rick scored a couple of goals and that was a good game. But other than that, it wasn't a great season. Another game that sticks in my mind. Then near the end of the season, we played Liverpool at home. Obviously, they won the league. They were a great team. And we drew 1-1 with them, which, you know, is a fair enough result, I suppose. And I remember we scored, Alan Sunderland scored. And everybody in the ground went mad as though we'd won the league just because we'd scored a goal against Liverpool. And it's like, wow. And at the time, it was amazing. But then you look back at it now, you think, is that really what we were? You know, we got excited about scoring a goal against Liverpool. We didn't even beat them. We drew 1-1. But that kind of sticks in my mind a little bit as well. Also, as well, I wanted to mention Paul Davies because it was one of his first season playing regularly in the team. He'd played a couple of seasons before, a few games, and that was his first season playing like regular in the team. And I always liked Paul Davies, I think for two reasons. One, because he was left-footed, and I've always liked left-footed players because I'm left-footed, and I've always had a soft spot for left-footed players. And also as well, I noticed he seemed to get quite a little bit of stick off the crowd, Paul Davies, as well in those early days, which was surprising because I thought he was always a great player. And that season, he was one of my first sort of real players that I really enjoyed watching, you know, and in them days. He was young, you know, brilliant playing midfield, great on the ball, great passer of the ball. And he was one of the first players that I really liked. Him and Brian Talbot were probably my two favourite players that season, actually. I just thought they were brilliant. Talbot was just everywhere. And Davies had that little bit of guile next to him. You know, Talbot was a bit of a battering ram, wasn't he? A charge around everywhere.
Elbows everywhere, running like that.
He just charged about everywhere. He was brilliant. But next to him, Paul Davies had that little bit of class with his passing. He was a little bit lightweight, got pushed off the ball sometimes. The physical games didn't always maybe do so much, but he was always a great player for me, Paul Davies. And I didn't like the way that the crowd maybe seemed to get on his back a little bit. I don't know if it was. I don't think it would have been like a race issue or anything like that. But obviously, we didn't have many black players in them days. He was one of the first who played regularly, wasn't he, in the team? But I always thought he was fantastic, Paul Davis, and he's always been one of my favourite Arsenal players. Really, just a little bit of class he had about him in a time when we didn't have much going for us in midfield, really. And he maybe stood out as well, just for being a little bit different, and he was. And
he
was
reminded
fantastic.
me of later on the player with Edu, that type of player, very classy, left-footed.
Yeah, classy. Yeah, he was. Yeah, great parts for the ball, and he scored a couple of goals as well. He could get forward a bit, get goals, and yeah, he was a great player. One of the early players I really liked, and obviously Raphael Meade will always have a big, massive part in my place in my heart for that goal that day. It looked like it was going to be 0-0 for ages, and then he pops up, smashes one in, his first league goal on his league debut as well. So it was his league debut for Arsenal, Chris White's league debut, and my league debut as well. So we got a clean sheet, and Raphael Meade scored the goal, so it was happy days. So I just enjoyed that. But yeah, it wasn't a great season, so we don't really want to dwell too much longer on that, I don't think, because there's not much really to talk about. Nigel says, congratulations, Richard, you're a veteran Gooner. Yeah, unfortunately I am. Yeah, I don't want to be considered a veteran, but there you go. And he says, there are over 4 decades of experience as an Arsenal fan. What are your thoughts on the cynical nature of the game with successful years being followed by periods of time? Well, I guess that's just with Arsenal. That's what it's always been. We've had good spells followed by pretty average spells, and that's in history of Arsenal. It's a shame we can't sustain a long period of success, really. But anyway, I suppose 10 years under Wenger, it was pretty good, and maybe 5 or 6 years under Graham before that wasn't too bad. So we've had some good times. I can't grumble, really. Neil says, Richard Melvin of Arsenal Encyclopedias. I'm still reading for Melvin, revealing his age to me last night. And I thought I was still youthful. Melvin doesn't. You shouldn't ask Melvin about his age. It's not right, is it? And James says, you and Melvin still look younger than me and Neil, so don't worry. Yeah, but anyway, you've got more hair than me though, James, so that's fine. And Nigel says, admitted I was an Arsenal fan of the 99 2000. Well, I mean, that was a great time, wasn't it? The early 2000s, what a fantastic time to be following Arsenal. We all enjoyed those years. And next week, I promise we'll have a season a little bit more up to date that you two can get involved in as well. But I just wanted to get that out of the way today because it was 40th anniversary.
Proper depressing.
I didn't want to let it pass. And yeah, it cheered me up, even though it might not have cheered you guys up. It cheered me up thinking back to Raphael Meade scoring that goal in front of the North Bank, which made my day. And I'll never forget that. So cheers, Raphael, if you're watching. I'd love to get you on the show, actually, Raphael, if you are watching anywhere. If anyone knows Raphael Meade, they've got a contact for him. I'd love to get him on the show and talk about that goal and his Arsenal career as well, because for me, he's a legend just on that basis alone. He did score a few goals that year, actually, Raphael Meade, to be fair. He didn't play that much.
The thing I want to do is I want to at some point grab a 1982 home shirt, because that was the year I was born. So it's one that's on my my bucket list.
Yeah, it was a nice kit, actually.
Yeah, it was a good kit.
It was a good kit, yeah. I quite like them kits because they were quite understated, really. They were just red and white. JVC, I always like the JVC on the front as well. It was just like proper Arsenal kits then, weren't they? Really?
Nice and simple, yeah.
Yeah, nice and simple, exactly. Better days, really. In fact, I seem to remember those days, Arsenal had JVC as a sponsor, but when the games were on telly, you couldn't have a sponsor on your shirt. So they had to have a plain shirt without the sponsor on for the TV games, which was strange. And that went on quite a lot in the 80s, actually, didn't it, Melvin? It was quite a lot, didn't it, for quite a few years, until they started to allow the advertising on, which seemed a bit of a strange one. But anyway, I remember that we had a different kit for the TV games without the sponsor on. But JVC, that was always our sponsor for years, wasn't it? It must have been 20, 30 years we had JVC on the shirt.
About 25 years, I think it was. Yeah,
it must have been. It was. I think it was 81 was the year that they first started the sponsorship, actually, and it went on until, was it 99 or 2000 or something, didn't it? When we got, was it Dreamcast or something like that? Was the first change.
Dreamcast.
Yeah, there you go. When you've got on, there you go. Yeah. Exactly.
Wow.
Was that 99 that shirt, Dorsey? Is that 99?
Yeah, it was the year Henri joined, wasn't it? Yeah, 99.
So there you go. That's Nigel says he's a fan. So there you go. You're wearing that shirt for Nigel. That's his season, his first season as well. So there you go. So that's cool. But they have nice shirts, yeah. And as Neil says, yeah, those were the days. Nice plain shirts. Exactly. Yeah, that's all you need. You just need a nice plain shirt. I mean, I like this one's a bit fancy, but you can't beat the 80s shirts. I don't think 70s and 80s for me were the best for kits, and you never get better than that. But anyway, so that was 1981-82, which was a crap season, but I enjoyed it. Melvin didn't, which is fair enough. And you two don't remember it, so there you go. And neither does Nigel in the chat, but never mind. I say next year, next week rather, we will come a little bit more recent or slightly more recent. So hopefully we can get some better memories. But that was enjoyable.
Sorry.
We ain't going
to talk about this season, are we?
Well, unfortunately, we have to talk about bits of this season because it's kind of
that's the whole thing. Like memories of the last couple of months. Don't want to do that.
No, probably not. Our last season,
maybe. Yeah.
We want to get rid of last season as well if we can, erase that from the memory. But no doubt, in 20 years' time, when we do a show, we'll look back on last season with fondness, maybe from the odd game, maybe the Slavia Prague game away from home, we won 4-0 or something like that. But yeah, there won't be too many good memories from that season, will there? Probably, or this one, perhaps, but we'll see. But hopefully, we'll get some good memories on Friday when we've got another game to look forward to, which is nice. So Aston Villa, obviously on Friday, they've beaten us the last 3 times we've played them. 3-0 at the Emirates last season, of course, we'll all remember that very disappointing game. They may have been a little bit of transition themselves, lost Jack Grealish, bought a few players in, Danny Ings, a couple of others. They've been a bit hit and miss. They've got a half-decent goalkeeper, apparently, but so have we now, so maybe people won't talk about that anymore. But obviously we do play Villa on Friday. Melvin, what are you thinking about this? Can we bounce back? And we need a better performance than last night, don't we? I think that's the first thing. Whatever the result, we just need to play better, don't we? I think that's the main thing.
You know what? This game's all about momentum. And after the Spurs game, I thought, here we go. We're on the rails, just getting a third gear, here we go. And the last couple of games, it's just kick between the legs, isn't it? It's like you lose all confidence. You know, we could start off the first 10 minutes, we could possibly go 1-0 up. But how confident will we be that we're actually going to win the game? And if we don't go 1-0 up, then all of a sudden, the nerves might come in. I want us to go on the front foot the whole time. Just give it a go. We're better than Aston Villa. We're at home. Give it a go, because if all this tentative stuff, passive stuff, they're going to pick us off, because they got a couple of decent forwards. Ings they bought. He knows where the net is. You know, and the other guy they bought from where'd he come from? Who's the other one they bought from Villa? They bought
Norwich. Wendia.
No, I'm talking about the year before. Who plays up front?
Oh, Watkins. Ollie Watkins from Brentford.
Oh, Watkins, yeah.
He, you know what? He's not a bad player. You make any mistakes at the back there, he's going to score goals. And they got some decent players, Villa. I mean, they may be in transition, Richard, but they can play football and they can turn us over. So we've got to be at our best. And if our manager has got to get them going, he's got to say to them, this is a game. The next game is the most important. And this one is really, really important for a lot of reasons. You want my prediction?
Yeah, go on, you'll get your prediction and we can do it now. So if we do the other games after, but go on, what's your prediction then, Melvin?
I think it'll be a 1-1 draw. Sorry, be a 1-1 draw.
No, I mean, that's probably optimistic. You got to bear in mind, in 3 games under Arteta against Aston Villa, we haven't even scored. So,
right. No, it was a 3-0, 0-0.
No, it was a 3-0 and 2-1-0 defeats at Villa Park. The last time we scored against Aston Villa, we lost 1-0 last 2 seasons at Villa Park.
Oh, right. Is that when Pepe missed an open goal from 36 inches?
Yeah, I think that was one of them, yeah. But yeah, I mean, the last time we scored against Aston Villa was, do you remember that game when we were losing 2-1 with Maitland-Niles got sent off at the Emirates and we won 3-2?
Adebayor scored the winner. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a free kick, yeah, and that was the last time we scored against Aston Villa. That was, of course, under Unai Emery. So it's about time we certainly got a goal against them, and let alone beat them. It'd be nice because it's been a long time. So they've been a bit of a bogey team again, as Crystal Palace have been. Let's hope that it won't come back to haunt us this week. I mean, Adam, what are you thinking for Friday? Do you think we can? I mean, bounce back maybe seems that we didn't lose last night. Let's remember, but certainly in terms of performance, get our performance back on track.
I hope so. That's again the thing is I hope so. I agree with Melvin. I think we need to go on the front foot, start like we did against Palace, but sustain that. Start like that way, sustain it. If we do go goal up, push forward. I'd love to see a first half like Spurs going 3-0 up at half time, and then I'm happy for you to sort of sit back and be a bit more reserved in the second half. But realistically, can I see it? It's difficult because I just don't know what team's going to show up. we haven't lost in 5 games, but like you mentioned at the very top of the show, like we've not been great in those 5 games. You know, we've not, and it's difficult. I'd be very interested to see what team he puts out again, like whether he goes a bit more secure. You know, put like maybe Sambi in, give him a chance to redeem himself, or even like Dorsey said, put El Neni in. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a bit more conservative in this game. The positive side in me thinks that we'll win, and I'm going to stick my neck out and say 2-0. That'll be my prediction, and I hope that's the case. But it all comes down for me whether we can sustain that pressure. If we can start off well, sustain that pressure, shut Villa up, because Villa won't be scared. Let's be honest; they're not going to be scared coming to us. Like you just said, they've got a good record against us. Our results are not exactly, trailblazing across the league. Villa have been very inconsistent as well. 2-0 up at the weekend, they lost 3-2. They need to bounce back. They need a performance as well. They need a reaction. Are we better than Villa? I think we are. I think we're a better team than Villa. It's just up to us to prove it, and I hope we can.
Have we got a better goalie than Villa, though? That's the question.
We'll see on Friday.
Well, I mean, you said we're going to win 2-0, so we're going to score 2 goals past their goalie, and they're not going to score any past that.
I like Martinez. I'm not going to get into that debate again, but I really like Martinez. I was sorry to see him go. And be interested to see the reaction again he gets. Because obviously last season there was no fans. So this season we'll be interested to see the reaction he gets. And I hope he gets a warm reaction. Like, you give a lot of years to us. You know what I mean?
No, I agree. I mean, I don't like to see any Arsenal player get a bad reaction when they come back. Especially unless there's any particular reason, like maybe a certain player who went to Tottenham later in his career, maybe. But generally, if they haven't done anything that bad, they should get a decent reception. And Martinez, he didn't do anything wrong, and he's having a good career at Aston Villa. Fair play to him. But yeah, I think the goalkeeping debate's finished now, thanks to Ramsdale's performances, actually, because I think it's put that to bed. We've got a better, at least a good goalkeeper, so we don't have to worry too much about that. But yeah, 2-0 to Arsenal would be a great result, wouldn't it? A great way to bounce back, and it would improve the unbeaten run, and hopefully it could be the start of a run. But as Melvin said, you just think we're turning a corner. Yeah, I mean, it'd be fantastic. Dorsey, what are you thinking, Aston Villa on Friday? What are you expecting?
I don't want to see Pepe on the pitch. He did my head in last night.
He did my head in as well.
I think, unfortunately, he's a player that epitomises everything that's wrong with us at the minute. I've seen that clip on social media flying around all day where he did that little bit of trickery in the defensive half, and it just people, look how good that. Really, I mean, that's what you look for in a player, is there someone that can do that in their own half at the corner flag. He didn't create anything last night, so I don't want to see him play. I'd like to see Martinelli give a start. I think he looked really sharp. He looked really hungry when he came on last night. And actually, I do agree to a certain degree with what Melvin was saying, that Lacazette is maybe more of an impact sub now. But I would like to see him get a start. I think he's clearly working hard. He's not a player that ever complains about being on the bench. He's been on the bench for quite some time now, and he doesn't seem to be kicking up a stink. He comes on and he performs like that when he came on. So I think for me, what you want is a player to make an impact off the bench, and if you do that, you should be pushing for a start in the next game. So I think Lacazette has done that. I'd like to see him get a start and see what he can do. Personally, for me, the whole Martinez thing, I think he's annoyed me a little bit, the way he's talked about Arsenal since he left. So for me, I don't dislike him by any means, but I would like to see us shut him up and stick a couple of goals past him. But I'm not confident, unfortunately. I am going to go for a win, but it's going to be a very, very slim one at 1-0. And that's just me being positive and going with my head rather than my heart.
Well, I think we have to at the moment, don't we? I think we have to try and go with that. Otherwise, we'll just be saying defeat after defeat, won't we? Which won't be much fun.
But did you read? I saw a stat this morning. Mikel Arteta's got a 33% win percentage at the Emirates.
Wow. That is.
So that for me, and that is definitely a cause for concern. You can probably say that there's obviously a huge chunk of COVID in there with no fans. That's obviously that's going to have an impact, but still, it's incredibly poor. So for me, whenever you start any season, you say, let's win as many games as we can at home, and we pick up the points that we can away from home. So, yeah, we really need to work on this home form and try and make it a bit of a concern for teams to come to, because right now, nobody, absolutely no, even Norwich, bottom of the league, they didn't fear coming to the Emirates. So that needs to change. And that's a mentality all the way through. But yeah, it was quite a shocking stat. I saw that this morning. I knew it wouldn't be high, but didn't think it'd be that low.
No, that is pretty shocking, really. And yeah, I suppose we have got a COVID empty stadiums and stuff to put into a large chunk of that would have been during that time, wouldn't it? And we haven't had, he was unfortunate that he'd only had a few home games with fans before the first lockdown, and then he's only had a few since it all started up again. So you maybe in that sense you can maybe let him off a little bit that record, but it's what we do now. And if last night was anything to go by, and this season's home performances, apart from 45 minutes against Tottenham, haven't really been that good, have they? So, and that's with a crowd that's actually seems to be a lot more behind the team now than maybe before as well. So, that's something that needs to be looked at. But yeah, our home form has been poor. I didn't realise it was quite that bad. We've had a couple more comments going back to the kit issue. Neil says, those were the days, nice plain shirts. Indeed, they were. Nigel says, kit sponsors ruin the jerseys. I think they do as well, yeah. Vintage Tom Clancy with nothing but the Arsenal colours and a cannon. Yeah, like the 71 kit, for example, no sponsor, just a cannon, and that's brilliant. That's what we want to see. James says, the 99 2000 was Sega and Dreamcast. It was meant to be the console of the decade. Had 2 or 3 good years and faded. Sounds like Arsenal in the early 2000s as well. I don't know, we were all right in the early 2000s. It sounds more like the decade that was like Crystal Palace being the team of the decade in the 1980s and got relegated in 1982 or 1981. Actually, they got relegated, so it's more like that really. And Neil says, "Get Melvin to chat about Liam Brady." Well, no, we don't want to do that, or we'll be here till like 5 o'clock in the morning. But maybe one day we'll do a show about Liam Brady just for Melvin. But yeah, you can't really argue with that. Neil says that was a highlight of last night. Well, yeah, there wouldn't have been many other highlights, I guess. So that's fair enough. James says, that draw last night's really angered me, as I can't see us getting anything better than a draw on Friday. You might be right. I think we're going to get overrun in the middle, quite possibly. Nigel says 2-0 to Villa. I hate to say it. Again, that wouldn't surprise me. And Neil says, that's so damning that we've not even scored against them for several games. No, we haven't. It's been poor. And James says, no team is scared to play Arsenal this day, sadly. No, they're not. And Neil says Ramsdale's better than Emmy all day long. Well, we'll find out on Friday, won't we, I suppose? But I kind of tend to agree. And James says, Neil reckons Ramsdale is the best. He told me before he should be carrying Ramsdale's wash bag. And Neil said he should be cleaning his books. Well, there you go. He's probably not far off, actually. And Nigel says, the 2015 FA Cup final seems a distant memory. Yeah, of course, we scored, 12 goals against Villa in one season that year, didn't we, including the cup final? We were sensational, but that's nothing to separate both sides of them. No, you're right. I think we're just 1 point above them, aren't we, at the moment? And James says, we don't score these 2 goals without Pepe. Well, there you go. So he's a bit of a fan of Pepe there. James is there. Dorsey said he doesn't think we'll score. I mean, you still were only going to score 1 anyway, didn't you? So I suppose there you go.
It's just my expectations of it. He's a much better player than he portrays, and that's what frustrates me. Is because I know that there's so much more from him, but he's just not consistent enough. And I know he was good towards the back end of last season, but he's just. And it's not even taking into account his price tag. It's nothing to do with it. It's just there's just no end product 9 times out of 10. And when he's good, he's very good, and he can create, but it's just not consistent enough for me. That's all it is. And we're not in a position to be able to carry players like that at the moment, unfortunately.
He's a luxury player. He's a luxury player.
He is. He is a luxury player. Yeah, he is a luxury player. I totally agree. Nigel says, Pepe is reminiscent of Crazy Legs Jovino. He kind of is, actually, in a way, to be fair. That's quite a good comparison, maybe. He's maybe slightly better than Jovino, to be fair, but he's very inconsistent. I mean, I've actually gone for a 1-1 draw. I did make these predictions this morning when I was still very annoyed about last night. But, Adam and Dorsey have maybe, predicted wins, and it's kind of swaying me that we might just edge it. But I'm going to stick with 1-1 because I did say that this morning. So I'm going to stick with that just because of last night, really. And James says we need to get him closer to the box like Salah for Liverpool. make him do too much. But no, we do. I mean, last night he did a lot of defensive stuff. He was back in his own half a lot of the game, and he's not going to be effective there, is he? I mean, he did some decent defensive work, and that clip that Dorsey said, which was a bit of a waste of time for him. He's not going to. It's no good to the team there, is he? You know what I mean? He should be further up the pitch, but I think that's Arteta wants him there. But yeah, it's going to be a tough game Friday. We know that Villa are a decent team. They're hard to beat, and if they come and play well, it's going to be a tough game. But we need to. At this moment in time, the result is almost secondary. What I want to see is a reaction to that performance and a much better performance overall. And hopefully, if we play better than we did last night, we should be able to get a result. But that's what I want to see. I want to see a reaction to that performance. I want to see the players put in a lot more energy, a lot more effort, be on the front foot more, attack a lot more, look to try and win the game. And if we do go 1-0 up, don't sit on that. As we said before, try and get a second goal and put it to bed. But that's what I want to see on Friday. Let's hope that we can do it. But we shall see. Well, before we finish, we've got to go. What we always do. It is week 9 of the Premier League, the Prediction League. We will do that after this. Now, last weekend was a bit of a disaster, if we're totally honest. A complete disaster. Adam got 3 points. Melvin got 3 points. And I only got 4 points. So it was a total disaster. We just so many. I didn't know they were that really strange results. We were just terrible with our predictions for them, unfortunately. The only game I think we all got a point on was Liverpool beating Watford. Although none of us thought we'd beaten 5-0. Other than that, we all struggled really. We all got nothing for Arsenal. We all said Arsenal.
Hold on a minute. The funny thing is, I was a bit unlucky because I had 2-2 with Villa and Wolves. And I was watching the telly, it's 2-2. I had that 2-2. And they got a free kick. I went, they're going to score, aren't they? And
they did.
Hold on a minute, Rich.
3 points there.
I've got issue with this. I've got a correct score with Man City.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, hang on.
That's 2.
Oh, you did have a correct score. You did. Sorry, yeah, you're right. Yeah. You got 2 points for that one.
I've got correct results with Southampton, Chelsea, and Liverpool. So that's 5 points by my reckoning.
Oh, Southampton. Yes. What have I got? What did I have Southampton for? Oh, Southampton beat Leeds, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right. Yeah, I got that one wrong. That's my fault. So
you've got to mark these games.
We want to have another look now, to be fair.
Yeah, 5 points. Yeah, you have got 5 points.
Mark the games after the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea to do that. Yeah. Well, I did. I did it as we were going along, and I still got them wrong. Okay, that makes a difference then. So Adam's got 5 points this week, which has made a difference to the league table actually, which is pretty good. So that actually moves Adam up to 41 points, which was a good week in the end. Well, a decent week for Adam. I'm on 44, but Melvin is still in the lead with 46, so he's still up there to be beaten. Melvin's chugging away nicely. Just make sure I haven't got any other mistakes. No. That's right. Yeah, right. Okay, that was right. Okay, right. We'll forget that. Right. Okay, we need to move on to this weekend's games. Obviously, we've all done the Arsenal game, which is the first game on Friday. So we'll move on to Saturday. The early game is, this one could be fun, Chelsea at home to Norwich. Melvin, what are you thinking? Chelsea against Norwich. Surely there's only one.
I've got a feeling that Chelsea might win this one.
You think they might?
Yeah. I'm going to have a 3-1. Chelsea 3-1.
Going 3-1 to Chelsea. Adam, Chelsea, Norwich.
I quite fancy Chelsea in this one, actually.
Do you?
Yeah, I quite fancy him, actually. But 3-0 for me. No goal for that.
Yeah, 3-0. Okay, that seems fair. Dorsey, what do you think? Chelsea, Norwich. Are you fancying Chelsea as well, or do you think Norwich might get their first win?
Yeah, 2-0.
2-0 to Chelsea, yeah? Okay, I've gone 3-0 to Chelsea. They'll probably score 3 goals in the first 10 minutes and then not bother attacking after that. That seems to be Chelsea's way, doesn't it? But the next game could be interesting. Crystal Palace at home to Newcastle. Obviously, Newcastle, with all their money that can't even beat Tottenham, and now travelling down to London to play Crystal Palace. Of course, who played well last night. Melvin, what are you thinking? Palace, Newcastle.
They ain't got any money. They can't spend it. So it's
irrelevant. They can't spend it. No, that's true. They can't spend it yet. Right. It's in the bank.
So Palace to win 2-0.
Palace to win 2-0. Okay. Adam, what are you thinking?
I actually think another draw for Palace. I think they are the draw specialists, 1-1.
They are the draw specialists, to be fair, but they are playing Newcastle, who are absolutely terrible. So anyway, Dorsey, what are you thinking? Palace, Newcastle.
Fancy Palace to sneak this one, 2-1.
Palace 2-1. I've gone 2-1 Palace as well. The same kind of reasoning. I think Palace are better than Newcastle, but they're struggling to get wins, aren't they? So, but I think they'll win that one. This game could be another home banker, maybe. Everton against Watford. Melvin, what are you thinking? Everton at home to Watford?
Yeah, I fancy a 3-0 here. Everton 3-0.
Oh, 3-0. Okay. Everton, of course, lost at home last week to West Ham, which caused us some shocks.
Can I just say something? I might change my score if I find out Iwobi's playing, and it might be only 1-1 the game. If
then it'll be 5-0. It'll be 5-0 if Iwobi's playing because he'll score a hat trick.
I don't think so. 3-0, please.
3-0. Okay, Adam, what are you thinking? Everton, Watford.
I've gone 3-0 as well. I think Watford look terrible when I see them play. Like,
yeah, they certainly look terrible last week.
First day of the season, but I think that every time I see them play, they just look a shambles.
Yeah, they do. I agree. 3-0 there. And Dorsey, what are you thinking? Everton, Watford.
2-0.
2-0. I've gone 2-0 as well. Everton don't tend to score a lot of goals today, but they should be too strong for Watford. This is an interesting game, I think. Actually, could be a good game. Leeds at home to Wolves. Could be a good game, this. Melvin, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult one, this, to predict.
Yeah, it is.
I'm going to Leeds to win 2-1. I know Wolves had a great comeback last time against Villa, and they will, get a bit of,
Leeds to win 2-1. Okay,
Leeds might actually turn it on. It's about time they turned it on. 2-1.
Yeah, they've been struggling for results, haven't they?
Yeah.
Adam, what are you thinking? Leeds against Wolves should be a good game.
Yeah, I think it will be a good game actually. But I fancy Wolves. The past few weeks have been quite resurgent, so I fancy a Wolves 2-1 win.
2-1 win to Wolves. Okay, I said a good away win last week as well. Dorsey, what are you thinking? Leeds against Wolves. It could be a good game, as we said.
Yeah, I fancy a draw in this one. I'm going to go 1-1.
1-1, okay. I mean, a draw looks to be a fairly good result. I've actually gone Wolves to win 2-1, like Adam, just because they're on a bit of a roll at the minute, Wolves. But winning 2 away games in a week's quite tough going, isn't it? They've been 2 tough away games, so I'm not sure if they'll do it, but I'm going to back them to win 2-1. This game's going to have a lot of goals in it, I'm sure. Southampton at home to Burnley, 2 teams that have scored about 3 goals between them all season. So this will be a good game.
Is there any rules to this? What's the most goals I can give for a game?
As many as you want.
All right, 1-0 to Southampton.
Yeah, that seems to be a pretty good shout, really. Adam, what do you think of this one? In goals galore here, I'm sure.
Same again, 1-0 Southampton. Yeah, it's going to be game of the week, that one.
Yeah, I don't think they'll get much time on match of the day, this one. What are you thinking, Dorsey?
4 draw, 0-0.
0-0, okay. That wouldn't surprise me either. I've gone 1-0 to Southampton as well, but yeah, certainly 0-0. That might be the game that does finish 0-0 this week. You certainly won't be surprised, would you? Now, this is a game I'm actually looking forward to. Brighton at home to Man City. This could be actually a really good game of football because, Man City, we know what they are, and Brighton have having a great season. Quite good at home, Brighton as well. They don't lose too many. So what are we thinking, Melvin? Can Brighton get a result against City, do you think?
No, I'm going for a 3-1 City win.
Okay, 3-1 City. Adam, what are you thinking?
I think it'll be quiet. Brighton, I don't think will concede many goals. They're pretty good at the back, but I do think City will win 1-0. Very tight.
Yeah, that seems a pretty good shout, actually. Dorsey, what are you thinking? Brighton, Man City. Can Brighton do it?
No, 2-0 City.
2-0 City, okay. I must be the only one that's got faith in Brighton, but I've gone for a 2-1 win to Man City anyway, just because they will probably win. But I think Brighton
that Brighton are going to lose.
Yeah, I think Brighton will lose 2-1, but I've got faith that they'll play well. You think Man City will win?
And they're getting beat. What if you hadn't had faith in them?
Yeah.
Well, I'd have them to lose like 4-0.
Fans are well happy about that. Well happy the faith you've got in them.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've got about as much faith in them as I've got faith in us. So there you go. Another game that could have some goals in this one, actually. Brentford at home to Leicester, 2 teams that have got goals in them, definitely. Brentford plays some great football. Melvin, what are you thinking? This could be a good game as well, couldn't it?
I'll tell you what, I've been impressed with Brentford. I saw them against Chelsea the other day. I saw them against Arsenal. Yeah. I saw them against Chelsea as well. I thought they were very unlucky to get beat. I think they're going to do it. I fancy them to win 2-0. I know Leicester had a great result against United. But I think that was not a cup final, but they're up for the Man United, Leicester.
Yeah, no, they are up for the Man United game. Yeah,
I think Brentford. I fancy Brentford to win 2-0.
Okay, well, that could happen definitely. Adam, what are you thinking? Can Brentford beat Leicester? Do you think?
I agree with Melvin. I think Brentford, every time I've seen them this year, really impressed me. Obviously, not just against us, but I remember seeing them against West Ham the other week when they turned them over, and I was really impressed.
Yeah.
I think this will be a draw. So I think Leicester might have turned the corner a little bit with that win over United. So 2-2, a lot of goals.
2-2, okay. Dorsey, what are you thinking? Brentford-Leicester. Should be a good game anyway.
I think there's going to be plenty of goals in this. I'm going to go for a 3-2 Brentford win.
3-2.
Wow.
Okay. They do tend to have goals in their games, Brentford, don't they?
Yeah.
That's for sure. I've gone 2-2 as well, actually. Me and Adam have got quite a lot of similar results this week for some reason. We're kind of thinking the same, but I've gone 2-2 there. I think that, Leicester, you're always going to get a goal, Vardy and stuff like that, and Brentford score goals. So, yeah, we'll go with that. And also on Sunday, a London derby, West Ham against Tottenham. So how many goals are West Ham going to win by, Melvin?
I've got a lot of faith in Spurs, I hate to say. I'm going for a 2-0 West Ham win.
Good. That's fantastic. That's what we like to hear. 2-0 win to West Ham. Good. Adam, what are you thinking? West Ham, Tottenham?
2-1 West Ham.
2-1 West Ham. This was the game last season when Tottenham were 3-0 up and drew 3-3, didn't they?
Yeah.
You remember? So there were certainly goals in it last year. I don't know what happened this year. What do you think, Dorsey? West Ham, Spurs?
Not even just because it's Spurs, but I genuinely think West Ham will sneak this one 2-1.
2-1. Okay, fair enough. Good. And to complete a clean sweep of West Ham victories, I've gone 3-1 to West Ham because they're playing good football and Tottenham are just Tottenham. So there you go. And the final game of the weekend is a biggie. One of the big games of the season. Well, Sky likes to pretend it's one of the big games of the season. It's usually quite boring, but it is Manchester United at home to Liverpool, which is looking like it could be quite an interesting game. What do you think of this one, Melvin? Man United against Liverpool.
I don't know, it's my brain or my heart, but I'm going Liverpool to win 2-0.
Liverpool to win 2-0. Okay, well, certainly Man United are not playing that well at the minute, and Liverpool are doing pretty good, aren't they? So, what are you thinking, Adam, for this one?
I think it'll always be competitive because it always is for those two. But I do think Liverpool will be too strong. I think they are a better side. 2-1.
2-1 to Liverpool. Okay. And Dorsey, what are you thinking? Are Liverpool going to lose their unbeaten record, the last unbeaten record left?
Yeah, they definitely. I can't see United beating them, but I've had the Liverpool game on. They've had a proper game tonight.
3-2.
So, yeah, it's been a proper battle. Quite a tough one to call this one because I wouldn't. It wouldn't surprise me to see United get a draw. But I'm going to go 2-1 Liverpool.
2-1 Liverpool.
Okay. It could be anything. Ronaldo could go and get a hat-trick.
Yeah, it is a game that's difficult to call because, like you said, I know it's not a local derby. They call it a local derby, but it's a big game, I suppose. And I just think Liverpool are too good at the minute for United. I think Liverpool will win 3-1. But I think it'll be a reasonably close game. I think Liverpool might get the third goal in the last minute on a breakaway. United are pushing people on maybe, but it could even be a draw. But they're the games for this week. There's some good games in there and a couple of sort of games that look as though they'll be 0-0, but they'll probably be the ones that'll end up 3-3. And Brentford and Leicester will be 0-0. Really boring game, won't it? That's what'll happen this week probably. But there's some good games there. We'll see how we get on this week. Hopefully we can get a few more points than last week, which I was disappointed with that. But anyway, things can only get better. We've got a few more comments in the chat there. Tom says they will be there on Friday. Hoping Martinelli gets a start. We were very lackluster after 20 minutes. We were. I don't know why they don't have the mentality like when we play Spurs. I reckon we might nick it 2-1. Well, yeah, I mean, that would be great if we can nick it 2-1. I agree. I'd like to see Martinelli get a start. I don't think he will personally. I think he might have to come on the bench again, but we'll see. He certainly wouldn't be any harm to put him in, the way we've been playing. Nigel says we need a Liverpool loss. They're the only unbeaten side left. Yeah, they are. We could do with a Liverpool loss, and Man United away is going to be one of their tougher games, isn't it? So if they're going to lose somewhere,
don't worry about that. It will come.
No, it will do. It usually does, but anyway, I'd like it to happen quite quickly because it always stresses me out while they're still unbeaten because they tend to last a long time usually. Russ is in the chat. Good evening, Russ. As well, how you doing? He says, "Nice shirt, Mel." Yep, indeed.
Can I just say something? It's not necessarily a nice shirt. It's the way you wear them.
No, you're right. It's the model. It's not the clothes. It's the model that makes it. So exactly. It's a nice model, Ross, is what you should have said.
Yeah.
What thanks for Melvin for modelling such a shirt. That's what we should be really saying. James there says Lanzini hit the goal of the season in the game. Obviously, West Ham Spurs last season. Yeah, that was a great game. That wasn't it. We enjoyed that at the end when Spurs went all Spursy. James says 2-1 United. Ronaldo, Ollie will get saved. Well, that in a way would be all right, wouldn't it? Because it means Liverpool would have lost. But yeah, maybe Ollie keeping his job a bit longer might be useful as well because he's not exactly setting the world on fire, is he? But anyway, well, that's another Tuesday clip. Do we all feel better after that, do we? Melvin, are you feeling better now?
I'm feeling, yes, a little bit better, yes. Yes, hope it'll stay till Friday night. Yeah, feel relaxed, a bit more relaxed.
Let's see how we're feeling on Saturday morning, I suppose, will be the key. Adam, are you feeling a little bit cleansed after that?
Yeah, I feel like I've got what I needed to get off my chest. I feel lighter. That should get me through the next 4 days. Let's see.
Yeah, good. I mean, I suppose the good thing is, in a way, the next game's quite quickly coming, so we haven't got time to worry too much about what's gone. We have to look forward to the next game, which is, I say, very, very soon. Dorsey, do you feel better now, having spoken about it last night and everything else?
Always helps. The missus doesn't really understand it, so it's not quite the same.
No, exactly.
But I definitely feel better. But I'd say what strikes me when we do these, when you run through the fixtures, you realise just how good the Premier League is. There isn't any really, but I mean, you look at Norwich, you maybe look at Newcastle, but maybe Burnley. But aside from that, I mean, you've got 15 really, really, really good teams in the Premier League. You know, the gap between 15th and 5th is not massive, is it? So makes you realise how hard it is to win games in the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's competitive. That's the key, isn't it? You know, certainly, you know, maybe you always expect Liverpool and Man City generally to win most games, don't you? And, you know, or probably Chelsea as well. But certainly below that, and like you said, up until probably 15th, 16th, anybody can beat anybody in that section of the league, can't they? On any given day, as we've seen already this season, you know. So, I agree. It's certainly a competitive league. And it's good that teams like Brentford are coming up and they're having a go and playing well and not just settling for going straight back down again, as Norwich seem to keep doing every year. And it looks like they're going to be doing it again, maybe. But yeah, I mean, it's nice when the promoted teams do well. I'm sort of pleased with Brentford. But yeah, it's a competitive league, and it is good that we're not getting so predictable. It's difficult to predict the results, and that's a good thing, isn't it? You know, the more games that are hard to predict, it just goes to show that the league's probably good to watch as well. And overall, it probably is. It frustrates me watching Arsenal, and maybe if we didn't watch Arsenal as much and just watch the other games more, we might enjoy the Premier League. I find it difficult to enjoy it because I kind of get the feeling every game's as crap as the Arsenal games, and it kind of stops me enjoying it, really. But anyway, but I'm sure that, I mean, you watch Match of the Day, there be some good games. Nigel says they need the Arsenal women back as soon as possible. Yeah, that's always nice. It's a nice distraction, definitely. And we've got to wait 2 more weeks till they play, unfortunately. Nigel says their competitiveness has always been the Premier League's biggest selling point. Yeah, it has, yeah. And even when there's, when it was Arsenal, Man United, the only 2 teams who could really win it, it was still a competitive league, wasn't it? You never got easy games. It was always, you always had to turn out and play well, and that's always been the case. So yeah, it's good in that sense. But I just wish that we were more competitive, maybe in the league overall, rather than inconsistent and play well for 10 minutes at a time. But anyway, I'm sure things will change eventually. They always do. And we are Arsenal at the end of the day, and we're not going to be down in 12th place in the league for long, are we? We might be for a couple of more years, but overall, that's not probably a long time, is it? But hopefully things will get better. Well, thanks to you guys for coming on. Melvin, where can people find you on social media? Because you're always very active on
social media. It's Melvin, the only way is Arsenal Marks. And find me mainly on Twitter. I don't use Facebook a lot. I'm on it, but don't use it a lot. Mainly on Twitter. Thanks again, Richard. Really enjoyed it. And with these 2 gentlemen as well, as always. Very good. Thank you. Thank you.
It's always a pleasure to have you on, Noah, of course, as always. And Adam, where can people find you for social media and stuff?
Yeah, mainly on Twitter again. Adam792001. Adam, always Arsenal. Again, missed this last couple of weeks. It's always good to have a chat with like-minded souls. So good to see you all again, gents.
Yeah, and definitely. It's always good. And hopefully now, there's no more international breaks for a little while, so we can have a run of the show every week now, hopefully for the foreseeable future, which is great because it's always good fun. And Dorsey as well, of course. Great to have you back on as well. Where can people find you in your social media?
Yeah, same with everyone else, really. Just mainly on Twitter. So Dawsey at Dawsey2801. Yeah, it's been good. It's always nice to come on the show and get it off our chest. Let's hope our November is not as bad as it normally is.
Yeah,
No, exactly. Yeah. It's the last thing we need is a bad November, isn't it? When we're not.
We got some tough games in November, haven't we? United and Leicester. So yeah, it's going to be a
tough month. Tough month.
Going to be a long month.
It is going to be a long month, but a lot of games, a lot to talk about, and hopefully some slightly better performances as well. But we'll see. Yeah, November doesn't tend to be our greatest month historically, does it? But anyway, we'll see how that goes. Neil says a great show as always, lads. Very cathartic. It can be, yeah. Thank you for watching as well, mate. Yeah. Look after yourself as well. And Nigel says great venting session, chaps. No, thanks again, Nigel, for tuning in. I know you're in the chat quite a lot on most of the shows I do, which is much appreciated. So yeah, if any of you guys haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please consider doing so. For shows like this, sensible Arsenal discussion is what we tend to try to provide. And we'd also cover the Arsenal women as well, which has been quite a lot of fun this season, top of the league in that side of it. So all good stuff. So yeah, please consider subscribing if you haven't done, and give it a like as well before you leave. And we can look forward to Friday. I'll be back on Thursday night. I've got an Aston Villa fan coming on from the Aston Villa podcast. His name's Richard as well. He's a good lad, and we're going to be looking ahead to the Villa game with him. Talking about that. That's going to be 8:30 on Thursday, and then on Friday, of course, the match day, we'll be doing a watch along again. I'll probably go live about 7:45 and do the watch along of that game. Hopefully, a lot better performance for us all to enjoy. So please join me for that, and then we'll maybe have a weekend off with no game. Actually, there's no women's game either, so I might just stay in bed all weekend. And not worry about football. I might watch the Brentford Leicester game though, because that might be good. So thanks to you guys again. Thanks to Melvin. Thanks to Adam. Thanks to Dawsey, of course, as always. Have a good week, guys. Enjoy Friday if you can. Are you going? Are you, Melvin and Adam? You going to the game?
No, I'm not going Friday.
I'll be there Friday.
Friday's not a good night for me, as they say. No, Friday's a family night.
Yeah.
No, that's fair enough. Are you going, Dawsey, or not? No, not for you this week. No,
not for me.
No, I won't be there either, unfortunately. The midweek games were no good for me, definitely not. So, but yeah, obviously, I'll be doing a watch along on the 10 anyway. We'll enjoy Adam in the stadium. Hopefully, you'll give Emmy a good wave as well from us. Say hello to Emmy for us as he trots into the goal, which would be nice.
And not like that either.
No, definitely not. No, he doesn't deserve that, does he? He's a good lad.
No, he doesn't.
He's a good lad. So yeah, thanks to all you guys. So I say thanks everyone for watching. I will see you on Thursday for the Villa preview show with Rich from the Villa Park podcast, and then the watch along on Friday. And in the meantime, of course, as always, we always finish the same way, don't we? Come on, you Gunners! Come on, be better on Friday. Come on, be better. Exactly, that's all we want. Just anything will be better than that, really, won't it? Come on, Arsenal, let's do it.